sir.
Okay, brief report from our June 6th council meeting. We welcomed a new council member to seat 4, Dale Reynolds. He will be serving out Sandy Levi's term. We had, as far as on consent agenda, we had 3 subdivision final plats that were approved by consent, totaling 169 lots, and there was 1 condo subdivision as well for a duplex. One item of note, as far as on our new business, was a request for reconsideration of a development agreement modification. This is the housing project that's on just west of Middleton Road on Lake Lowell. It was denied. They do have an approval to move forward with approximately 46 lots or 46 dwelling homes, I believe. They were asking for more than that, so it was denied. As far as public hearing items, we had zoning map amendments from IP to IL for Campbell Tractor. It's just more of a matter of course, but something that works for them as far as their show lots. A zoning map amendment from IP to IL for, this was a project that was kind of unique. The lady that was asking for it's over off of the freeway there next to the RV park, asking for the ability to stack these mobile containers or recycling containers on site. It was deferred so that they could provide more information. An annexation and zoning request from BC to BC is for the south side lots, which is 84 unit apartment projects in 6 buildings. And then the final item of note was District 208, which is the old Karcher Mall. They asked for consideration to put in 140,000 square feet of storage, conditioned storage within the building. It was denied for that amount, but 60,000 square feet was allowed of conditioned storage. The balance of the evening went pretty much straightforward, but I'll answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Randy? No questions over here.
Okay, you guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay. Is there any staff communication? Okay. Consent agenda. Somebody want to make a motion? Or pull things off?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is accepted. We got 2 minutes and then we'll start public hearings. Okay, I have 6 o'clock, so we'll start public testimony. Do we have the applicant for item number 1 present? Online? Okay. Is he online?
Tim Viole is the applicant for this one?
That is correct.
Okay, you're on, sir.
We have a representative there, Lowell, with ZJ Architects.
Okay, come on up to the podium. Thank you.
Make sure and give us your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Lowell Alseth. I'm with ZGA Architects and Planners, and the address 300, excuse me, 300 East Mallard Drive, Suite 325, Boise, Idaho, 83706.
Thank you.
And quite honestly, wasn't sure what we needed to present. It's gone through the process, and the staff report, I think, covers everything quite well. And basically, the staff report is recommendation that the annexation be accepted and moved forward.
Okay, well, we can hear from staff, and then if we have any questions, we can call you back up.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
all right, Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Parker Bottling, Nampa Planning and Zoning Department. The action requested from you tonight is the recommendation of approval or denial for the annexation and zoning to IL of this parcel, 2 parcels. The item was originally scheduled in February of this year. It was continued by this body in April, and then was continued again in June this year. The surrounding zoning, surrounded by Canyon County to the north, east, and west. And then to the south, it's contiguous with IL zoning. The city has no utility main lines in the area, though plans have been recently approved to bring those utilities. Staff finds that the property will be contiguous to the property to the south, which is currently within the city. Staff finds that the proposed IL zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use map, which is designated industrial in the area. The third conclusion of law states that the body should find it reasonably necessary to assure the orderly development of the city in order to allow efficient and economically viable provision of tax-supported and fee-supported municipal services, as well as other things. This conclusion of law gives you significant liberties to determine if this is whether or not this is the right timing and location for annexation. As far as the zoning, the IL zone is consistent with the comp plan. The proposed use of warehousing, distribution, wholesale fits within the allowed uses in the IL zone. The staff finds that the adjacent parcels are currently being used as ag land, but are designated as industrial for the future. And the properties to the south are all zoned IL. Staff finds that the proposed zoning would not create a spot zone. And the staff finds the proposed development would add industrial land, which is currently viewed as in high demand, and that's been supported in previous hearings. Here's a concept plan showing the future division of the parcel. There's resulting in 4 different lots there with a common drive through the middle of it. We covered the conclusions of law. proposed use is warehousing, which is a permitted use in the IL zone with the condition that outside storage be screened from view. As far as correspondence, the engineering division had submitted a revised comment as of June 10th. One thing to note from that revision is that the right-of-way dedication is a little bit different than the previous comment. So there's right-of-way dedication from 50 feet from the section line on Midland, 50 feet on Ustick, and then 40 feet on Spruce, which will be dedicated at time of development. The traffic impact study will be required for the project and should be approved prior to submittal of the building permit. Frontage improvements will be required. The reason for the dedication on Ustick, I believe it is that they are in the transition from the highway district to the city of Nampa for jurisdiction of that right of way. The staff finds that the land use is consistent with the surrounding uses as well as with the comp plan. Compass indicates that the development would have a positive impact for the city, fiscal impact. The conditions of approval are in the staff report with a couple of modifications that were resulting from that adjusted memo from engineering. So if you plan on recommending approval based on these conditions, we can come back to this. There's a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker?
I got one. So Parker, on the concept plan, we're just looking at annexation and zoning. They'll have to come back with a plat to create the lots, correct?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, that's correct.
And there's no concept plan as far as building layout or anything like that yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Do we have a sign-up sheet for this one? Daniel isn't here. Okay. Okay, we're open to public testimony. Is there anybody here that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this? Okay, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I think so. I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
For the person online, I'm going to mispronounce your name, Mr. Viole?
Violet, that's okay.
Viole, sorry. So
No
any
problem.
idea on how buildings are going to lay out or what types of use? I know you said distribution and wholesale. And
Yeah,
things
we
like
have
that,
some
but-
very preliminary layouts that are planned. We've got in excess of about 500,000, 600,000 square feet that could potentially be proposed on the site. Buildings are laid out parallel with the east side of the property, which essentially is a railroad easement. And we are providing access to these four lots through a spine road that comes up off of Ustick and then up the Noble Trench. There's a aquifer up running along our west boundary, which is our spine road is just to the east of this waterway, and then it will go up to Spruce Street, which is our northern boundary, and then off to the west over to and join Midland. So right now we're just proposing lots. We have done some concept studies, but we're not far enough along to formalize those at this point in time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, Madam Chair,
Yes.
Bob Sumter has his hand up.
Okay, Bob, give us your name and address for the record and let us know what you think.
This is Bob Sumter. I'm in California. Do you need my full address?
Yes, please.
Okay. 1044 Glenhaven Drive, Pacific Palisades, California. I'm an advisor with Mr. Violet's company, and I just wanted to point out that the utilities were mentioned earlier by staff, and I'd like to put it on the record that we are participating in the program with Adler and LDK, and we have put up money to actually complete those underground utilities to the site.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any, Parker, any design review requirements for this site?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, not at the time. We're in the process of writing design review requirements for industrial, but that's not anticipated until October, later this year at some time. So it may be in place by the time they apply for building permits. It may not.
Okay. Any other questions?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Sounds like a good place for it to me.
That'd be my only thought is the design review, since USTIC's gonna start becoming a more prominent corridor, but
Yeah, they'll have to come back though.
When they plat.
Plat, correct, and before building permit.
So we'll have a second shot at
We'll have
it.
a second shot at.
so.
Assuming they come back before or after October. October? That's the target? Okay.
I don't think it's a good project.
Yeah, I think it's, need as much industrial ground as we can get.
And we set that land aside for it, so I mean, we might as well use it for what it's intended for.
Is there a motion in there somewhere?
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move to recommend approval of annexation and zoning to IL, zoning at district at 0 and 0 Ustick Road for River Range, Idaho LLC, representing Dana Kyle Devlin and Hilda Lane Devlin with all conditions of staff.
Those conditions that he modified as well.
Yeah, and the conditions that were modified. Yep.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve with the appropriate conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Public hearing number 2. Do we have the applicant here for Parker Estate subdivision? Come on up.
Subdivision Maker LLC, 1434 New York Street, Middleton, Idaho. Here today on behalf of the landowner and developer, Left Right Center LLC. There are 3 individuals that created this company to acquire the property and to build it. The subject property is one of 3 parcels still in the county, surrounded by city. The subject property is 2.9 acres. It's one of 3 properties that are still in the county but surrounded by the city. So it is an infill project. The 2.9 acres accesses East Greenhurst. Its address is 525 East Greenhurst. There is actually a 525 West Greenhurst. So when you get out there, make sure you go to the Albertson side and you're in the right place. We held a pre-application meeting with staff, and they counseled us regarding the comprehensive plan, the codes, the adjacent zoning, and we chose to apply for an RD zoning with a development agreement. We would like to propose annexation, zoning to the RD with the development agreement and a preliminary plat before you tonight. When we met with neighbors in, I think it was December, I sent out 63 notices, 11 attended, one being the president of the HOA next door to the west. And we were able to show them the design that we have before you tonight, so the design has not changed. The neighbors wanted less density on the west, so nearest them, so we've got our single-family housing. Thank you for that image, Parker. So the top half is the west, and we've got 8 single-family dwellings, and then the east side are townhouses, and I'm going from memory, I think there are 10 townhouse lots or buildings, 20 total units. When we talked with staff in the pre-application meeting, we learned about a 50-foot, that was a good map to keep up, or this one, 50-foot right-of-way dedication from center line of Greenhurst. So that is shown on our preliminary plat. Adjacent to the 50-foot dedication for right-of-way is also a 25-foot landscaped transportation buffer. And then south of that are where the houses begin. You'll notice at the, I'm going to call it the bottom left on the image that's on the screen, lot 10 is the common area, and we'll have a play station there. It'll also be the turnaround for that meets the fire codes. Regarding, if you're familiar with the property, when you're headed east from 12th Avenue Road, you'll find, you pass the commercial, then the River Oaks development, a single white house, and then a big row of trees. That big row of trees is in the 25-foot landscape buffer, but we've been told that they probably need to come down, and we need to just communicate with the city forester. The staff at our pre-app meeting asked if we could talk to the neighbors to the east. Does that image slide at all? Can you go back to that, Parker, please? Thank you. There's a house on the bottom right of this photo. That's Steve Shaw's house. And staff asked if we would talk to the Shaws and see if we could combine approaches so we didn't end up with multiple approaches right there. I visited with the Shaws early on, and as soon as I got the 50-foot right-of-way dedication and the 25-foot transportation buffer, and then we start our local road connection, out of my mouth, I had heard the word no thank you. But I'll go talk to my wife, but the answer is no. So we really made an effort to think through what that might look like and tried to accommodate what the staff had asked us to do. Happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, we have the annexation zoning and preliminary plat before you tonight.
Any questions for the applicant at this time? Might have some questions when we're done.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested tonight, annexation and zoning to RD, and a preliminary plat for Parker Estates, not named after me. The concept is for 20 townhouse units and 10 buildings, and then 8 single-family detached homes. The gross density is 10.35. The surrounding zoning to the north is Stone Ridge subdivision, zoned RS6. To the south is RD. Those are 4 plexes. That's Sunny Ridge at Whitehawk. To the east is in the county, and to the west is RD. That's River Oaks townhouses. The city water and sewer all have adequate capacity to serve the property. Staff finds that the property is contiguous on northwest and south sides. Staff finds that the proposed RD zoning is consistent with the comp plan. And then the last conclusion of law would give you, again, liberty to determine whether this is the right timing and location for annexation. The zoning, staff finds, again, that it's consistent with the comp plan. Staff finds that the request for both single-family and detached units matches the surrounding uses. Staff finds that the RD zoning is compatible with the zones and existing uses in the area. The RD zone would not create a spot zone, and staff finds that the proposed annexation and residential development matches the existing land uses and housing type. Based on that, staff can reasonably recommend that the project be approved. Here is a concept plan that we've looked at already. Again, 50-foot right-of-way, 25-foot landscape buffer along Greenhurst. The Parks Department is requesting the developer install a sidewalk along Greenhurst that is shown in the bicycle and ped plan with a minimum width of 10 feet. Code compliance has a open case along for the weeds along the right-of-way and fencing. They're asking that to be destroyed. The irrigation district states there's a easement for the lateral, 55-foot total, 30 feet to the left, 25 feet from center on the right. Police Department recommending a commitment to fund 0.12 officers, 0.04 staff. Nampa Fire states that the development is 0.3 miles from Fire Station number 2, response time of 3 minutes. Subdivision will add approximately 84 residents and a increased demand on personnel of 0.084. The right-of-way, again, 50 feet from section line. There's no concern about site distance here, and a traffic impact study is not required for the project. The proposal matches the single-family homes in the area as well as the townhouses to the west, fourplexes to the south. It's a mix of uses in the area. The future land use map is medium density designation here. The proposed development has a gross density of 10.35. NAMPA has determined it's in the public interest to provide a variety of housing opportunities as stated in the comprehensive plan. Regarding the plat, the plat area is 2.9 acres, 8 single-family detached lots, 20 attached lots. The net density here is 12.15 dwelling units an acre. The max allowed in the RD zone would be 12.44 dwelling units an acre. The required minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. The minimum proposed is 5,251. The open space required would be 10%, and the proposal provides 10% in qualified open space. The conditions of approval are listed in the staff report. Nothing has changed since that was submitted to you. And there's a potential motion for you for those two, for the preliminary plat and the annexation. And I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker? Okay, we'll go to public testimony. All right, I have for the proposal, Darren Taylor. You wish to speak? Oh, you were, sorry. Glad you're for your proposal, thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak for the proposal? Okay, I have Steve Shaw signed up against. Would you care to speak? And give us your name and address for the record when you come up.
My name is Steve Scholl. I live at 617 Greenhurst. On the east side is project. And my biggest concern is the amount of traffic going through there. There's been more than one time, we lived there about 5 years. And the traffic backs up when school and all during the day. There isn't that many east and west routes through the city that are so direct as that is. And it's not unusual to have that backed up all the way 3 blocks, both directions. You have to wait to get on there. And this is putting another group of people on there also. And I would like to know what setback they're allowing off of my property to put these units in. Is there anybody here that can tell me?
We can ask them that, and when we're done with public hearing, we'll go back to the staff and they can tell us.
Okay. And that's putting a lot of traffic down there on the corner of Sunnyside, East Greenhurst. And there's also a piece of property across from Wilson Creek Apartments. There's a big empty, it looks like it's 10, 12 acres there or more. Is that going to be developed? That's putting more people on that road.
Don't know at the present time.
It's an ideal place to develop. So what we're going to do about all that traffic that's there? I mean, I'm not talking about little traffic.
Right.
With the schools, with the high school down the road, plus all the rest of the traffic going east and west. And I would like to know about the setbacks.
Okay.
And those are the main things.
Okay,
But
we'll
I'm-
ask staff those 2 questions for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this proposal? Come on up and give us your name and address for the record.
Hello. Cynthia Waitens, 2373 River Oaks Drive. Yeah, I have a problem with this being built in. This is a horse pasture. I can't believe they're going to put 18 properties in a little horse pasture. Concerned about sewers, tearing up the roads. Traffic was what Steve was saying. You can't even get in or out now with all the buildings that they put in behind. And there's lava rock. There was lava rock, stone. It took them a year at the property behind them. And they blasted, and our houses in River Oaks just shook. And I'm wondering, with them doing that again, is our foundation going to have a problem? What are we going to do about that?
Into that.
Yeah, and the playground with the kids, River Oaks is, I would say 95%, if not more, senior. And the playground is going to be right on the end. Kids are going to be cutting through, and the noise. There's a park behind Wilson Creek there that they could play. So not happy about this, object to this. And why more people aren't here from River Oaks, I don't know if they were supposed to be here. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this proposal? Anybody undecided? All right, Parker, do you want to address the east side setback?
The required interior setback would be 5 feet. Whether they build up to that is the question. Usually they provide backyards for these types of developments, but I mean, it's up to the developer. unless you wish to add certain conditions to it.
Okay, we can check with the developer and see. Daniel, you want to talk about traffic, your favorite subject? We missed you last meeting.
I hear you were fairly nice to Clemente, though, and didn't have any, make him come up and talk.
We didn't
even.
pick on him, no.
I appreciate you doing that. That means he might be willing to come again for me. So with the city's traffic policies, we require a traffic impact study for 100 units or a development that creates more than 100 vehicle trips in any peak hour. The reason that that threshold is set is that as we look at traffic and what volumes of traffic actually impact the operation of intersections, these lower volumes of 30 vehicles in a development do not trigger improvements needed at those intersections, especially in this situation where you have signalized intersections either direction from this. We would not see that this volume of traffic would cause those intersections to fail and need additional improvements.
And
So there's no improvements planned for like the Sunnyside and Greenhurst?
Sunny Ridge and Greenhurst is
Sunny Ridge,
an existing signalized intersection. And at this point, its level of service and operation are well within the city's thresholds that we have set for acceptable levels of service.
Parker, anything to say about lava rocks or Daniel, you do that? All right, Daniel.
Before you sat down.
So the question was regarding the installation of utilities and that. The city has adequate capacity to serve this development with our water, sewer, and pressurized irrigation system. The installation of utilities in areas where there is rock, generally speaking, they do blast. It depends on what the depth of the rock there is. In that area, I don't know that we've seen a geotechnical report. I did not review that, so I don't know exactly where that rock is. Generally speaking, I've seen developments go in within the same proximity that we're looking at here, and the blasting contractors are very conscientious. While the adjacent property owners may feel that as they're blasting, it's not been our experience that it causes damage to those foundations.
All right. Can we get the developer to come back up here, please, Darren? East side setback. Can you address what's going to be back behind those?
Yes, I don't have a plat that's the size that I can see it now that that's my age that I'm at. But I know state law requires 10 feet minimum for the exterior utilities. So I know it's at least 10 feet.
And they're planning on
And
having.
Parker mentioned the interior. On the townhouses, you'll have a common wall with two buildings. And I can't remember the distance between buildings, but I know that exterior perimeter is at least 10 feet.
And you're going to put lawns in the back?
Yes.
Okay, so there'll be,
And it'll be fenced, perimeter will be fenced. I'm not 100% familiar with NAPA's requirements, but we would like to do that anyway. One of the neighbors wrote a letter, you might have seen it in the file. He wants an 8-foot fence. I'm not sure that the city allows that, but we'll certainly have a privacy fence there.
Be vinyl or
Vinyl or,
wood or?
yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard, Bluff Tech is a
Yeah.
product that's similar to Trex, but not as expensive. So I don't know what type of fencing material the developer will actually install.
In your plat, it looks like the setback to the east is 5 feet off the property line.
Well, then that will be changed during construction plans, so.
And there's really no yard behind the house.
Well, we're not gonna leave it, in natural vegetation. So there'll be pressurized, I know we've talked about pressurized irrigation system throughout and
Okay.
any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, I've got just a couple of points to make.
Sure,
if
yes,
that's-
please.
If that's possible. So we've read and understood the police department's request and the fire departments for partial funding, partial FTE, full-time employee funding. And we understand and concur with the conditions of approval that we've seen in the staff report. So no surprises for us, and we feel the same, we want the same respect for the city. We've talked a little bit about setbacks. My final comment, I did want to mention, you all know this, but we will be required to continue the improvements on and along Greenhurst Road to help increase capacity really to a 4-lane or toward a 4-lane. So especially 2 lanes headed eastbound on the south side. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. You guys want to close public hearing or ask more questions?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. All right, guys.
I think it's a good infill project. We got city all the way around it, so we
I
got all our
agree.
utilities there and everything, so.
It's pretty compatible with what's around there.
Very much so.
You got, if I'm not mistaken, townhomes directly to the west, right?
Duplex, River Oaks.
And the project's going to contribute impact fees towards city streets and police and fire, and that's why we set those up. If there's no other comments, I'll make the motion to approve the annexation and zoning to RD, two-family duplex residential zoning district and subdivision preliminary plat for Parker Estates subdivision at 525 East Greenhurst Road. For Darren Taylor, subdivision maker LLC, representing Left Right Center LLC with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to public hearing item number 3. Wagers Dairy subdivision. Do we have an applicant here? Thank you.
Let's see. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Bonnie Layton. I am a senior planner with NV5. We are located at 690 South Industry Way in Suite 10 in Meridian, Idaho, 83642. Tonight, I am here on behalf of the Wagers family to present to you the Wagers Dairy subdivision. It may seem familiar to some of you as we had brought this application forward about a year ago or so, which we had gained approval at the Planning and Zoning Commission level. However, the City Council had some concerns with the application, and so we were turned back. So thank you again for being here this evening. Hopefully I can go through this fairly quickly. It looks like we have quite a few folks in attendance that'll probably want to provide comment again. So on behalf of the Wagers family, we're here to request your approval of the Wagers Dairy subdivision with an R7 zoning designation and a preliminary plat. Oh, here we go. Oops. Here we go. So for those of you that may recall, or those of you that don't, the Wagers Dairy subdivision is actually located We're north of Moss Lane and in between Moss Lane and Homedale Road, east of Midway Road. The Wagers family, this, as you can see from the satellite photo, was a working farm, with the homestead being in the most southeasterly corner of the property there. The property is outlined in the red dashed lines. The Wagers family, if you may recall, also owned the 40 acres to the northwest, right at the southeast corner of Homedale Road and Midway Road. That portion of their property was annexed into the city of Caldwell in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the future land use maps between the two cities. We gained approval through the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council of the City of Caldwell for that 40-acre portion. So all that's remaining of the Wagers family's initial approximately 60 acres is this 20 acres that we are bringing before you this evening. Let's see. Another thing to add in this slide is it's kind of unique. As I mentioned, we have a 40-acre parcel that's at the corner of Homedale and Midway. Southeast of that, there's the property that's on the on the west side of Portner, as well as another portion that's on the east side of Portner Road. Let's see. So the existing and surrounding conditions, the future land use map designation for this property is medium density residential. The project is surrounded by approved and existing development in the area. We have agreed to right-of-way dedication and improvements along Moss Lane and Portner Road, which will provide for enhanced vehicular traffic flow, connectivity, and safety in the area. I'll get into a little bit more detail on that in a second. And then also wastewater and water lines, service lines are available for connection in the area and have the capacity to serve this project. Most specifically on that note, I'm going to flip back here to the slide previously. The sewer connection actually, and maybe Christy, I don't know if you've got a mouse pointer or if I've got one on this. It doesn't work on the screen. Okay. So on the parcel that's adjacent to Moss Lane, in that southeast corner across the street, there's a cul-de-sac in the existing subdivision. And so that brown lot there that's in the corner, that's actually where the sewer service connects to. And we worked with the city engineering staff and were able to secure a sewer access easement from that, the property owner of that lot. That was a pretty big deal for this project and just for the future development of the property in the area. So we secured that in our last go-round. That's a recorded easement that's been approved and recorded on the title. So that was a big hurdle for us to get over, and we were able to accomplish that. And so that's actually where we will be connecting our sewer lines into. Let's see, I'll flip ahead here. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of discussion last time and really looking at the site and trying to address the concerns of the neighbors. We heard a lot of testimony last go-around. I assume we'll hear some of the same this evening about the connectivity and the roadways in there. These are public roads that are county-owned and maintained that we would be accessing, except for Moss Lane, I guess. But Portner is a county road with Canyon 4, as well as Meeker Avenue. So Meeker runs from Midway and then heads to the east and connects into our most northerly portion of our project. And Portner Road dissects the remaining parcels. We understand that Portner Road is not fully developed and that there are concerns with the condition of it. In the previous go-around, which is consistent with what we've seen in the staff report, and we're in agreement with this, is to improve Portner Road from Moss Lane to our northern boundary. That'll be a significant improvement to that roadway and less burden on Canyon 4 Highway District to eventually repair the rest. I did have discussions with Canyon 4 after we went through these hearing processes to see, is this on your CIP? How many complaints have you received from your residents that you've logged? They said they didn't have any record of them, of any complaints being lodged on Portner Road. So we were really trying to work with the agency and understand what are those concerns and how can we help with access. It was, and then also with Meeker Avenue, this kind of shows a better picture of it. So Meeker Avenue is also a public right-of-way that's also in poor condition. We were conditioned, we agree with the condition, same as last time, that we would repave Meeker Ave off our site all the way to Midway, and then of course it would connect into our site. We held a neighborhood meeting and really tried to listen to the neighbors in developing this plan. And it was very clear, depending on what road they lived on or what side of the lateral or what side of Portner Road, everybody was happy with the traffic going out the other way, you know? So we had part of the neighbors saying, yes, great, like, why can't we send it all out to Midway or connect it all out through Meeker? And we had other folks saying, oh no, why don't we connect it out a different way? So what we did is we really tried to split the difference. We had some neighbors that were really concerned about traffic going through the existing Bernie subdivision. There was feedback last time about providing access directly onto Moss for our most southeasterly portion, as opposed to putting that traffic onto Portner. And so that's what we did. We really went back to the drawing board. So our southeast corner of our site now has one access point that loops around. It lines up with the entrance to the subdivision to the south. And so we have a loop in there with open space along our eastern boundary and connectivity into onto Portner Road, just pedestrian connectivity. And then above that, as we head north on Portner Road, what we did here, Portner Road is a local road. There are homes that have driveways directly accessing onto Portner Road. It's a real residential feel, and so we believe that in order to keep that theme going in this area of the site, it would make sense to front some of those homes onto Portner. Those are driveways onto Portner Road instead of having two road points. Again, trying to create that residential feel to the neighborhood. Behind those lots, we have a large open space, and then also lots to the west of that with a road that stubs. There was a comment in the packet from the engineering for us to provide a temporary turnaround where I believe it's Holstein, stubs to the north. Thank you, Christy. And we're in agreement with providing that as a temporary turnaround until that time that the project or the property to the north of us develops and would continue through to Homedale Road. On the, excuse me, on the west side of the number 15 South Branch lateral is the remainder of our project. And again, we have large continuous open space adjacent to the lateral that will be able to provide park amenities, play structures, open grassy areas, and walking paths for our residents. Excuse me. And so overall, what we did is, again, really tried to create a plan that distributed the traffic and minimized the impact on any one set of neighbors, just really trying to make it fair and even. So we're roughly 20 acres. We're requesting a preliminary plat with 68 single-family home sites, 9 common lots. That gives us a density of 3.46 dwelling units per acre. We've got 28.43% open space, qualified open space. We're at 20.09. And really believe that, if I can show you the before and after slide here. So the picture on the left shows our previous plan. And as you can see, the red arrows are where we had access points going onto Portner Road to Meeker, and then actually there was an additional access point down into the Bernie subdivision, the arrow that's kind of diagonal. The resident that lives adjacent to that actually has developed into the right-of-way. I think I've addressed that in the letter that I submitted. And so again, trying to be good neighbors and not disturb that encroachment activity, we've just eliminated that. So we have, on the right-hand side, we've got a slide that shows some of the lots will go out to Meeker, on Meeker to Midway. And we've got the one street on the west side of Portner that will take some of the cars. Again, as I mentioned, we'll have some homes at front. Portner Road, just like a lot of the residents that are along Portner that already do front. I think we've got a gentleman to the south of us that actually has a U-shaped driveway. So he's kind of got 2 access points off of Portner for his driveway. And then he was a gentleman that was fairly vocal last time and really concerned about the roadway kind of stubbing straight to his property. So we eliminated that completely when we made the access point off of Moss Lane only. So with that, I think I've covered everything. I'm happy to stand for any questions that you may have at this time.
I think we'll probably have them after we go to public testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Christie.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I am Christy Watkins, the Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. And the request before you this evening is for annexation and zoning to RS7 and the preliminary plat for the Wagers Dairy subdivision located on Moss Lane and Portner Road. This property is currently outside the city limits in Canyon County, but it is contiguous to the city limits on the south side. It's bordered on the south by the Moss Point subdivision, zoned RS6, and on the north and east and west sides by Canyon County residential properties. The project itself is split between Caldwell and Nampa. The area shown on this map is the Nampa portion. Caldwell City did approve their portion of the project last fall. The city does have capacity to serve this project and will be required to construct utilities to and through at the time of development. So the staff recommendation, staff finds that the property will be is contiguous to the city limits on the south side. Staff finds that the proposed RS7 does match the medium density residential designation in the comp plan. And of course, the usual conclusion of law that gives you significant liberty to determine whether or not this is the right time for this annexation. For zoning, staff finds that the proposed zone, again, meets the comp plan. Staff finds that the request for 68 single-family residential lots on 20 acres is reasonably compatible with the area due to the fact that the Moss Point subdivision, which is zoned RS6, has existed in this area since 2004. Staff finds that the proposed RS7 zoning district is compatible with the zones that exist there. Staff finds that the proposed zoning will not create a spot zone. And staff finds that the proposed annexation and residential development do contribute to the character of this area as we expand out into our outer reaches of the city limits. We've been out in that area for about 18 years, but again, it's only been to the south of Moss. So the applicable regulations that apply to your decisions are the usual for annexation and zoning. To do the review of this project, we used the Chapter 8 RS zoning codes and the Chapter 27 subdivision codes. And the comments that were received were from the building department. You have 2 letters for this project from Valley View School District. The Nampa Forester had some comments. The police department stated that they would require an additional 0.3 officers and 0.1 support staff. Nampa Fire requested an additional 0.207 firefighter positions for the number of population that this would increase. And the engineering division had their standard requirements for this development. So she went over the land uses in the area. This project is proposing a density of 5.27 dwelling units per acre. It is 3 miles from Valley View High School. It is many miles from Summit View Middle School, which is the new school north of Highway 2026. It is 2.5 miles from Lakeview Elementary School. The traffic analysis is very extensive. I feel like Ms. Layton went over that fairly descriptively with you. Nampa Highway District does have jurisdiction over Portner Road, Wilma Lane, and Meeker. All of the design and permitting will be required to go through them. Meeker, Wilma, Bernie, and they're all old county subdivision roads. Sorry, Bernie shouldn't be on that list because they're not connecting to it. That were likely originally gravel with asphalt that was placed at a later date. So Meeker is required to be repaved and improved out to Midway. So this project proposes 9 common lots and 68 building lots on 20.36 acres. The previous request was for 67 lots in the RS6 zone. They're now revising that to the RS7 zone with the open space combined together in larger gathering areas than it was before. The open space for this plan increased from 3.57 to 3.95 acres. The lots that are adjacent to pre-existing larger platted lots that are in the county measure at 10,000 square feet. So the plat is deemed compliant in regards to compatibility. All lots demonstrate the required lot width and depth. The city forester has reviewed the landscape plan and has requested revisions to the tree species that are listed on the plan. A 6-foot wrought iron open vision fence is proposed on all the lots adjacent to the open areas and pathways, and a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence is proposed around the perimeter of the development. And as stated, the total common area is 28.43% of the development. The qualified portion of that is 20%, almost exactly, in the 9 lots. Oh, amenities will include play areas, tot lots, picnic tables, benches, pathways, and landscaping. So the fiscal impact for a project like this, the applicants, of course, can only give us an estimated market value at the time of sale. So if they estimate that the homes will be $500,000 and up, then through our analysis, that proves to be a benefit to the city to serve this property. The conditions of approval are in your staff report, and these are your potential motions. If you would like to do them separately, you can, but you can certainly do them together. I will stand for any questions.
Questions for Christie?
Yes, I have several. Christie, on page 79, it's talking about Portner Road, Meeker Avenue, and the condition of the roads. And it says that they have agreed to pave those. Doesn't say when the work will be done. Is it before the application gets started on the housing? while this project is going on or after it's completed? When do they have to do the road improvements?
Commissioner Kehoe, that is typically part of their punch list. They have to have those items completed before we will sign off on the plat.
Okay, just don't take this the wrong way, anybody. I'm just asking a general question here, okay? Now, if the developer had agreed to do this and then went bankrupt or because of economic conditions couldn't afford to, what happens in a situation like that to these roads that never got built?
Commissioner Kehoe, likely the rest of the subdivision wouldn't get built either, so it would just stay in its existing condition.
What if they chose to build the roads last? That's what I'm afraid of, is if they build the roads last and suddenly, because, I mean, economic situation in the country right now is not exactly stellar. So if they would belly up or something, then we're just stuck with them?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kehoe, having lived through that once already.
Yes.
The way that happens is that if they were to be in the middle of doing something and they did not have their plat complete, they would not be able to sell lots. And at that point, we would, if there were work that had started on the roadways, the existing roadways, and was not complete, we would work through legal action to have that completed. If there were, that would, yeah, that's typically how we would handle
So
that.
we
We've
would
had
just say, oh, well, they didn't do it, never mind.
No, the plats would not be able to be signed without that being completed.
Then, thank you very much. This probably not saying to you, but you might want to stay there just in case. Christie, on page 88, it says, we are proposing variety community amenities, and we are contemplating 5.15 acres of open space. Now, they're proposing and contemplating, but what happens if they say, nah, we've decided not to?
Commissioner Kehoe, if this is the plat that you choose to approve or recommend for approval this evening, they will have to meet those
They
conditions.
will have to do those?
Yes.
Okay. One more. I wasn't here. I was out of the country at the last meeting, and Todd Lakey gave his opinions on the schools and what they could require and what they had to do and so forth, right? And this one here, it says, the Valley View School Board proposed a bond to alleviate crowding, and that it failed. And it says, we are unable to count on new schools to provide relief. Therefore, we ask that you deny or postpone this request until a bond has been approved by patrons to build elementary schools that will alleviate overcrowding. Is that enough grounds for us to say, no, you deny your application because they can't build schools?
So
Look at what
Commissioner
Todd said.
Kehoe, you did receive the second letter.
One tonight?
No, there was a second letter that was sent out with the email. Did you see that one?
I don't know.
Okay, that letter spoke about an agreement that has been reached between the developer and the school
I didn't see that
district.
then. No, I did not see that.
Okay.
So what's the agreement?
They have an agreement between them about some donations that will be provided.
Oh,
It's-
that's what it's
It's, well, it's similar to that letter, but that letter's for a different project.
Oh, okay,
But it says the same thing.
all right. No, I have not read that.
Okay,
So they're okay with it then, the schools are.
they appear to be.
That's all I need to know.
Okay.
You're dismissed.
No, wait.
What, sorry?
Ron, you wanted to ask Daniel a question?
No, that was good.
Okay, all right.
Well, Daniel, I can ask you something else if you want. Okay.
There we go. Okay, go to public testimony. All right, we have Ella, and I'm sorry, I can't read your last name, Ella.
My name is Ella Morgan. I live at 16552 Bernie Drive, Nampa 83651. I'm here pleading on behalf of our neighborhood. A lot of the neighbors have lived there for decades. I've been there 26 years myself. I've been affiliated with the land my entire life. Some of the neighbors actually bought their land from my late grandparents. It's a very quiet community. Everybody's, it's like 9 o'clock, everybody's done for the day. And with all this traffic going through, and it just takes away, You know, we want to live our golden years in our homes that we've spent time and effort making beautiful. The lots are big on our side, and my grandparents made that happen because they wanted people to have a wholesome life to live. I mean, I have 5 generations that walk across the street to get the mail, and that's a rite of passage. And with traffic running through there, I would hate to lose one of my grandchildren just because of the traffic. It's just, we just need and we want, and I beg you to just let us have our golden years. It's like our, you know, it's our home. That's all I've got. Thank you.
You were signed up for, so I'm going to move you to the against column.
Oh, I'm against. I'm against. I'm not trying to, I mean, I understand development has to happen, I guess, but, you know, it's, like I said, it's our home, and some of us have been there forever.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. Okay, also for, we have Joseph Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joey Palmer with the Valley View School District, 5207 South Montana, Caldwell, Idaho, 83607. So I am a director with the Valley View School District, and I do write the letters that you were referencing, and there is an updated letter. After we provided the initial feedback to give to Ms. Layton and Ms. Wilson, they immediately reached out and asked for an in-person conversation to explore this and see if they could partner with the Valley View School District to see if they can help the community as they're working towards development. So specifically, what the Valley View School District has been doing is been meeting with developers anytime that we receive more feedback from the city of Nampa. And for the most part, developers either don't meet with us, or when they do meet with us, they say, gee whiz, that sounds really rough. And then they don't actually do anything tangible. And then they go through and they're approved. I'm happy to report that in the city of Caldwell, multiple developers have actually partnered with Valley View School District in a tangible way to mitigate the impact on that growth has on our community. However, that has not happened in the city of Nampa until I've had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Layton and Ms. Wilson. So they are the first developer in the city of Nampa to say that we would be willing to donate $500 per door if it were approved by the city of Nampa throughout the approval process. So that is very significant. I would also like to say that during my conversation with them, at no point did they bring up any arguments as to why they shouldn't have to do $500 per door like many other developers I've met with have. They're very interesting arguments and rationales that I hear. Obviously, because they're business people and they want to make sure that they're looking out for their best interest and their bottom line. I did not get that impression whatsoever from the Wagers Dairy subdivision effort. Their questions were consistently, tell us more, how can we help, is this enough? So that was appreciated as well. And then also they threw out ideas about how they could potentially see the agreement through if they were ultimately approved. And we explored multiple ways of how we can make that happen. And finally, as the letter noted, we are way over capacity, thank you, and Lakeview Elementary School. But we believe in a partnership with this, we'd be able to pool money with multiple developers that would help long-term solutions to what we're experiencing with the growth. Thanks for the time.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Before moving to beautiful Canyon County, I lived in other county to the east of us. And I was on their planning and zoning commission over there. And they had developers would come to them and say, hey, we want to build a subdivision. We'll donate 3 acres for the elementary school. We'll donate 10 acres for a high school. You're saying Caldwell does something similar to that. They work with you on how to mitigate the problem.
Correct.
Why has Nampa never been doing that? What is your opinion?
Nampa has been doing that. I'd say that Caldwell City Council members have been a little more assertive with developers and saying that you need to go and make sure that you're communicating with Valley View School District. Sometimes they'll say, we did receive their letter, and they'll say, no, we want you to get in the same room with them and actually talk to them, look them in the eye, you know, those kind of phrases. And that has turned around the dynamic whenever developers come and work with the Caldwell City Council significantly.
Have you ever had a meeting with Nampa City Council?
Not the Napa City Council collectively. I met one-on-one with City Councilwoman Jangula, the board chair, I believe, and can't remember the other gentleman, multiple times with Mayor Kling. And then we're also going to have another meeting with the school district's lawyer, along with the 2 city lawyers and the 2 mayors, to see more about how we can align our efforts.
Because, I mean, some jurisdictions do it. Why do we not do it wholeheartedly here?
You know, I know the answers to that, but there's a lot of ranging opinions about that, and a lot of people don't see eye to eye there. I'm afraid that might take a lot of time.
Keep after them.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You probably saw me give them the 30-second warning. You guys have 3 minutes to get up and talk. I'll give you a warning when you got 30 seconds, and then I'll tell you when your time's up. Okay, against, we have Nicole McBee.
Hi, I'm Nicole McBee. I live at 11185 Moss Lane, Nampa, Idaho. Okay, so the biggest problem that you have is Portner. They are willing to develop half of it. That's it. The problem is not the half they're going to develop, it's the half they're not going to touch. So I'm going to bring you pictures so you can see what they're not going to touch. Okay, that's last time in city council, this is what the big hangup is. I can't put them up. Okay, so the half they're not going to develop is 14 feet. 14 feet. Most of the houses sit on that road. You'll see by the pictures that one car going down that 14 feet, another car cannot pass it. So they want to put, on Portner, okay, I counted how many, now they're going to feed some to Moss. But the problem is if you go to Moss and you go out to the boulevard because it feeds off, you cannot go to Caldwell that way. I live closest to that intersection. If I want to go to Caldwell, I got to drive over down Moss to Portner to Homedale to the only stoplight that's there, to get at the stoplight to go left to Caldwell. So that's the problem. They don't have the money to buy those little teeny homes on that little piece of Portner that has, 1, 2, 5, 6 homes there. There's 2 across the street, and there is a little dinky tiny trailer park that has another 10 to 12 homes in it, and they all sit on a 14-foot lane. So now you're not going to develop that. You're doing 0 with 14 feet lane, and you're going to put more cars on it. And now she says she wants to put cars backing out to Portner, and you can see it's a lane. That's our problem. They can't develop Portner. You guys don't have the money. Nampa doesn't want to touch it. Canyon County doesn't want to touch it. And they certainly don't want to do anything with that end of Portner because it's going to cost too much money. So if you can figure out the problem with Portner, less homes is what we said. I mean, you guys, the lots that they want to develop, I'm sure are these new lots where you stand in one house and you touch the next house. In Moss Point, the homes are not that size. They're about 1/3 an acre. And that's across the street, and they're saying, oh, we don't want to do anything that isn't within the plot, which isn't already there. Well, they're bigger lots. These are not bigger. That's our point. You got to do something for Portner, period.
Thank you. Okay, we have Kathy Heaton, and you said you do not wish to speak? Okay, come on up.
I'm Kathy Heaton. I live at 11181 Moss Lane, Nampa, 83651. So last time the gentleman got up and talked about the traffic studies that haven't been done on this, he said that they usually recommend it with 100 plus. Is that 100 plus homes, or is it just 100 plus vehicles? Because if there's going to be that many homes in, typically people have more than one vehicle. So that would put that at that ability to go in for a traffic study.
I can ask that when we're done with public testimony.
Also, I don't believe $500 per door is going to help the schools. My kids were at Valley View School at Lakeview. It was so overcrowded. My son was in kindergarten. He had there was 3 kindergarten teachers when he started. After a month, they had to hire 4. And then they split up all of the kids, and he lost the friends he made in the first month of school. So I now don't have my kids at Valley View. We commute to put them in a smaller school so they get more one-on-one attention. It's complete chaos at Valley View. So I don't really feel that they really came to a compromise where they have the ability to educate the kids that are in these homes. So also, if you were to want to develop this area, maybe a 55-plus community would be the option. So that would be a better benefit to that area because that is really who lives there. And that's about all I want to talk about.
Thank you. Okay, we have Karen Smith, and you've indicated you don't wish to speak. We'll have you down on the record as against. Okay, and Brian Smith, you wish to speak? Come on up.
Brian Smith. I live at 16284 North Loper Street in Nampa, which is in the Mossy Point subdivision. I've been born and raised here in Nampa. I've been here, I'll be 50 years old this year. I've lived on Moss Lane for the last 48 years. My mom, she bought the place in 73. My biggest thing is the traffic. And Moss Lane has never been developed. All you guys all want to do is just pot fill the roads, and you just chip seal it again. Every year we chip seal. That's all we ever do out there. Portner Road doesn't get no better. Homedale don't get no better. Midway don't get no better. You guys did put a traffic light, or not traffic, a four-way stop sign at Midway and Homedale, because it was just, you had to stop on Homedale, but not Midway, which is great. But now when schools get out and rush hour traffic, you're backed up for a long ways to get to that intersection at certain times of the day. Trying to go out Moss Lane, like my sister said, you can't go to Caldwell at the boulevard. So your traffic studies need to be on the boulevard, not these side roads, because the boulevard is a mess after all these years of being here. Your utilities, I can't water my yard at a certain time in Mossy Point because there's no pressure. And I pay my water bill to get good service. But if I try to water my yard at 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning, they're just trickling. There's no pressure. There's too many houses. So you got to pick certain times of the day to water your lawn. So the utilities are not that good when it comes to irrigation. Might be good on sewer and all that. And then she says we got to come into Mossy Point to get sewer access to support the subdivision. And we're going to put the access road right across from my subdivision out to the main road. And the schools, I had 3 kids go to Valley View School and graduate there, okay? My last 2 kids had to pull out of school because they're so crowded. And the last bond, if I don't recall, just failed. We didn't get approval. So I don't know how $500 a house is going to help you build a new school, sir. And I apologize, but those schools are bad, crowded. And you're going to put all these homes in here and add more to it. And the school wasn't for it last time, so I don't know what has happened to sweet talk it to get you to say, yeah, let's do it. It ain't a good idea for them schools. I don't know how they can support it. Where they put that 4-way stop sign, should have been a roundabout. Those roundabouts flow so much nicer. I don't know why they didn't consider that. There might be more money or what. But roundabouts, I mean, first I wasn't for them. But now that I'm getting used to using them, you flow pretty good through those things. Even the school buses go through them pretty good. So, and like my sister was telling you about Portner, that end they don't want to touch. And I appreciate her pictures because they show a lot. Just take time one of your days and go take a drive down Portner and go check it out for yourself. That's the way I go to Caldwell. Get to the controlled traffic light to make your lanes. I don't go out Moss Lane for nothing out of the subdivision. I go out Hunt. And Hunt's even getting to be a mess when you try to get on the Midway. But I appreciate Steve for bringing up all your concerns for this. I really do. This needs to stop because all these subdivisions just keep piling in, but we don't want to touch the schools, and we don't want to touch the roads, and we need to. Thank you.
Okay, next person that signed up is Bonnie Kohlberg.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Bonnie Kohlberg, 16611 Portner Road, Nampa, Idaho, 83651. One thing that Bonnie did and the Wager subdivision was they pointed the road out onto Moss rather than coming out right directly across the street from our home. Greatly appreciated that. The only problem I see is that the people that come out onto Moss, if they turn left and head towards the boulevard, they can't get out onto the boulevard, which means they're going to turn right and turn right again and go right up Portner Road, which is, I think I counted 23 or 25 houses in that easterly subdivision that they're gonna plot. That's approximately 46 cars. Portner Road can't handle 46 cars. There's no way. So then the other houses in the northeast plot that they have directly coming out onto Portner, there's no way. It won't handle it. And like Nicole said, at that point where they're not developing Portner Road, it's a single lane. So what are they gonna do with another 46 plus cars? The other thing that I suggested when we had the neighborhood meeting was most of the lots in that area are 2/3 to, or I said that wrong, 1/3 to 1/2 acre lots and bigger. Make these the same. Make them 1/2 acre lots. They can still charge the money, they can still make the money on them because they're bigger lots, but it'll be a less population impact. That's all I got.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, Tim Eld.
Good evening, all. My name is Tim Eld. I live at 16877 Prairie Lane, and I've been there 26 years. My back property line borders Portner Road, and the development they're proposing over there is catty-corner from our property over in that direction. Now, I've been here every meeting opposing this development, and the last meeting we had with the city council, they turned it down because of the issues with Portner Road. The problem with Portner Road is it's a one-lane road. 2 trucks cannot pass on that road at all. If you meet a school bus, you have to get off the road somewhere so the school bus can go by. They showed pictures of a FedEx truck trying to get down the road. You know, there's kids playing in the road, trees overhanging the road. It's not a suitable road for more traffic that they're proposing to do. And nobody showed any interest in developing the road from the corner of the Wagers property to Homedale, because that's going to be a difficult, expensive proposition to widen that out to 2 lanes. And that's why the whole thing was just shelved. And then they come back again with a new proposal, which really isn't much different than the old one. They're still got 68 homes versus 69 homes. So I don't see what the advantage of their new proposal is. We've still got that many homes, that much traffic in our area causing congestion. They did have a meeting in January that I went to, neighborhood meeting, and went down there, and like she said, it was proposed that their lots be bigger because most of the lots there, we have 1/2 acre lots. Our subdivision is all 1/2 acre or larger. Most of the lots all around there are 1/2 acre or bigger. Why not make these lots all 1/2 acre or larger to be consistent with everybody else? That's much less traffic in our area, which would be more conducive to the road as it is now. The other thing I would be opposed to is in their plan, they want to build that subdivision across the road with a whole bunch of houses backing out onto Portner. I don't think that's a good idea. I think I would rather see a big berm there with landscaping if anything happens at all. The traffic in the area is getting more congested, and just building 68 more houses there just adds more to the traffic in the whole general area. getting off the boulevard is a problem. It really needs to be dealt with. And I think that there's too much development going on right now. It's outstripping the capacity for our streets and roads to handle the traffic. So my bottom line is I am opposed to having any development happen on Portner Road or in this area until somebody steps up and says, hey, we are going to widen out Portner Road from Moss to Homedale and make it a 2-lane road all the way through. But that has to be the first thing that happens before any development happens. Thank you.
Okay, Lori Harden.
Okay, I'm Lori Harden, 11947 Bonnie Lane, Napa. And I want to start off by the vision statement from the county comprehensive statement is ensuring the quality of life for Canyon County residents by preserving our agricultural heritage and planning for a smart growth future through physical and fiscal management. A lot of things on my list was already talked about, but there is a problem with the traffic. It's now going to be a problem at Moss and Midway. Caldwell is already planning growth on the west side of Midway on Moss, so it's going to put more traffic right there. Fiscally, the roads are not getting fixed. They're not taking care of the traffic. Stop signs are being put in. That's a Band-Aid fix for the problems. The response time that's listed in these projects, I don't know if that means currently or after all the growth, because Caldwell has already approved the lot near this one for growth. So that hasn't started yet. There's going to be quite a few houses that's part of this Wagers projects that's in Caldwell. And I would agree with them too. The $500 per door is not going to solve any problem that school districts are having. So it's not a good fix. All these cars are going to be accessed in 55. They're going to have to be used in Moss and Midway. Moss is not a wide road as it is to get all this traffic. So we're potentially between this and the Caldwell part of this project, we're talking about several hundred trips a day on the cars. So not only Portner being a problem, but we're also having Midway. They're going to pave Meeker to Midway, but then you also have getting out onto Midway from Meeker is going to be a problem. So that whole area needs to be evaluated for the traffic problem. We've talked before at the meetings about the water and they're hooking up, but we are concerned about the water. There's wells drying up in the Treasure Valley. We don't want that to be a problem. The Bernie subdivision, they're on wells, so we want to make sure we're still going to have water in the future if there is drought years. They did mention the lot sizes, 1/3 acre. The Bernie subdivision, those are 1/3 acres. So if this project could go through to 1/2 acre or larger lots, it would help some of the problem by less houses, less congestion on the growth that's there. With all the growth going on, we don't have the professional services that are needed for the people that are here already. It's hard to find accountants, vets, doctors. A lot of them are taking new patients. People are filing extension on their taxes because they can't find accountants. And then just bringing more people. You're changing the quality of my life by doing this and everybody else. So, thank you.
Okay, Pat Bryant.
Hi, my name is Pat Bryant. I live at 11965 West Meeker Avenue. And just for the record, I was here a while back, I measured asphalt to asphalt in front of my house is 23.5 feet. So if you get a truck, somebody stopping on that road and two meeting, somebody's got to give. And if you want to increase it by 21 homes, which could make as much as 100 cars coming up and down that, which is road is not in very good shape anyhow. It was redone 18 years ago. But now you want to stick over 100 homes across the road, which isn't affecting us, but this other coming down Meeker will, you know. So like I say, like I did before, leave our subdivision alone. If you don't want to leave our subdivision alone, then we're not going to be county, then take us into the city and end the whole project. And then you can do the streets up the way you want it. Other than that, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, Cindy Miller, you don't wish to speak? Okay, we got you on the record as against. And then we have one undecided, Julie Cronin.
Hi, I'm Julie Cronin. I live at 11902 Wilmer Lane. My home is being hit on both sides. Caldwell's on the left side and Nampa's on the right. I want to know if we are all under Pioneer Irrigation, how are we going to access our irrigation water?
Shouldn't change. They can't.
How are they going to, usually in the city, you don't have ditches.
Right.
So how are they going to give us access?
So if you have a ditch already, they might cover it, but they can't restrict your
But
water.
if they cover it, don't have access.
I'll tile it. Concrete pipe.
And they'll have some way for me to get it out of the concrete
They
pipe?
legally have to.
They legally have to, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about the traffic, because Meeker Road isn't finished, because it sits along the side of my property, and it's a weed patch. It's been a weed patch since I bought the house in 2008. I'm a fourth generation Nampan. My great-grandfather was a mayor of Nampa. And to have all this impact, because Caldo put in how many houses? They put in over 100. This is a lot of traffic that's gonna be coming through. Like the people have been saying, we can't get on the boulevard. We go up Homedale, we go midway to Homedale to get on the boulevard. To even go east, because it's bottlenecked. It's horrible going into Caldwell, because when the snow hits, Napa's a little better. They get it out of the road. Caldwell just piles it in the median. So if you have to turn into someplace, you're screwed. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else present that would like to speak for the proposal? Against the proposal? Come on up.
My name is Marilyn Gunderson. I live at 16641 Bernie Drive in Bernie subdivision. And I have a question. I have been told by two different sources that once a developer gets the go-ahead and goes forward with a subdivision with their plans, once that's all been okayed, they are at liberty to change those plans. From two different sources, I have had people tell me that they can add houses. How will we know that what we are seeing here is what we will get?
When they bring the final plat before us, it has to match what the preliminary plat is right now. They can't change it without coming through a whole nother public hearing process.
Okay. All right, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Come on up, sir.
Thank you for taking the time to hear me. My name is Don Schelling. I live at 16538 Bernie Drive in the Bernie development. I had the same concern that there'd be a change in the road. The previous one was going to put a roadway in to this change and bring it into Bernie, and I was really opposed to that. I had a lot of other concerns about water. I haven't changed my mind about the water concerns. Whether there'll be an irrigation or our wells, because we're all on wells, this whole area is. And I've seen things where wells got filled with concrete where I lived before in Nevada. So it's a big concern I have. The future could be, that'll be a big change. But I would say that if you weren't going to approve this again, you might consider with third-acre properties for these things. So it would reduce them, make it more livable for the surrounding developments. Some of these people have half-acre parcels. We're all basically one-third within the Bernie development. And that would allow them to charge more money, put in a little bit larger homes if they were going to do that, and make up the difference there financially. That's it. Thank you now.
Is there anybody else present that would like to testify? Okay, can we have the applicant come back up?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission, again, for your time this evening. I took a lot of notes, so hopefully, if you bear with me, I can go through and try to address as many of the concerns as possible and, again, answer any questions. Let's see, just to start out here, there were some initial questions about paving and timing. We anticipate that this would probably be constructed in 3 phases. This main water line and sewer comes up through Portner. So that would be the first part of the development phase for that. I believe we would phase the southeast portion as our last phase. That's where Mrs. Wager's home is. The Wagers family has actually owned this property, I believe, since 1937. One of the Wagers members was actually on the original school board for the Valley View School District, helped form the Valley View School District. So like many of the residents that you've heard testify this evening, the Wagers family does have a significant history in the area and as residents in the community. I'd like to speak about the Valley View School District. We understand I do projects all over the Treasure Valley. Obviously, as we all know, Idaho has experienced unprecedented growth, and trying to keep up to that has been a challenge for a number of entities. We understand the challenges of the Valley View School District and what that means. I think our conversation was very productive, and I appreciated the fact that unlike some other jurisdictions and school districts that I work in, there's a very clear plan as to if they can partner with developers, what that partnership looks like and what those funds would go towards. I know that between the Valley View School District and both the city of Nampa and the city of Caldwell, it's my understanding that the agencies are trying to figure out the best way to move forward. We understand that we're on the front end of this and trying to be a good partner. So as soon as we received the letter, I contacted my client, Lee Wilson. She's the representative for the Wagers family. And we said, let's go and meet with the school district. Let's see what we can do to help be part of the solution. We believe this community, as I stated in my application letter, will provide the opportunity for housing. We did have somebody come and testify that there's a lot of dentist office or doctors that can't find people to employ. A lot of times that's because you're offered a position, but you can't find a home. I've heard testimony from other public agencies specifically. We hired somebody out of the Midwest. They were all gung-ho. They quit their job. They came to look for a place to live. They couldn't find one. They had to turn the job down. We're trying to be part of that solution. We understand that as our community grows, there are some growing pains with that. But ultimately, development has occurred around this property, and we are becoming really an enclaved piece of property. It's not viable for for a 20-acre parcel to continue to be farmed. The Wagers family is not in the farming business, and so if this doesn't get approved, it will remain just a vacant lot at that point. To address some of the comments regarding, first of all, the TIS. So I do appreciate, actually, My application letter was one of the longer ones that I submitted with this application. I don't typically go into quite so much detail, but we had a lot of history on this site. I'm not sure if everyone in the audience had the opportunity to pull that application and really read it. We encouraged them that we would be making application, and all of our application materials would be available at the city. And I believe staff also did a very good job in their staff report, very detailed in addressing those issues. So in that, as hopefully you have seen, initially there was a traffic impact study, TIS, done as part of the larger project that included both the 40 acres in Caldwell as well as this 20 acres. We knew that we were going to trigger it. We wanted to be above board and say, okay, we want to make sure that we're encompassing this whole project. And so that TIS was really based on all of the units that the Wagers family property would generate in traffic. So that was done very specifically. And we had several meetings with both City of Caldwell engineering staff, City of Nampa engineering staff in terms of the right-of-way improvements. The intersection of Homedale and Midway, when we initially started planning our project, the City of Caldwell had us reserve room for, at that intersection on our southeast corner, for the eventual build-out of a roundabout. So there was a gentleman that had commented, those would be great. I believe that's a long-term plan. I can let staff speak to that in more detail. But those plans are in the works. We've reserved right-of-way for that to happen. In the meantime, there's a signalized four-way stop intersection at that intersection. Let's see. I know there was some discussion about a requirement to make this a 55 and older community. That is, our goal is to provide market rate housing to families and retirees. To require that it be 55 would be against the Federal Fair Housing Act, and so that's not something that would be legal or fair to us. But we do plan to provide quality homes for residents that want to live and work in the city of Nampa. Let's see. So again, there's been comments about Portner and the condition of the road. I just would like to reiterate that we are doing a fairly significant improvement of the road along our frontages. And again, additional concerns really need to be taken to the highway district so that they can get that on their CIP. I urge everybody in the room, to get that on their radar. We're doing a significant investment. We've heard testimony, do less lots, do bigger lots. The amount of offsites that we do, it makes it financially impossible to do all those improvements and have less lots. Our financial models don't support that. Also with the lots, we are in the comprehensive plan designated medium density residential. So we're complying with that zoning designation through the city's planning documents. So again, we're in compliance with the future land use map, we're in compliance with the comprehensive plan, and we've developed our plat accordingly with guidance from the staff. Let's see. The homes fronting onto Portner, and I don't know, maybe Christy, if you could pull up just a kind of a picture or a satellite image. Again, our goal there is to provide their 80-foot wide home sites that would, this is a local street, a local residential street. There are several homes to the north, Mr. Coburg's property to the south. Those have driveways on to Portner. So that really, we believe, creates a residential feel for the roadway as opposed to just a racetrack with berms and no homes fronting on. So really trying to maintain that residential feel of that road. To address Mr., I believe it was Smith's concern about water pressure and watering, That may be something specific to his neighborhood, of course. In the city staff requirements and comments, we're required for pressurized irrigation. We'll comply with all of the Pioneer Irrigation District standards that are typical for development. I understand that some people get concerned about what does that do to their water, as you have mentioned. That's something that we have to make sure that we do not disrupt water down the line for the other users. Let's see. As I mentioned, we will be repaving Meeker from our property boundary all the way to Midway. So that's a significant cost to our development, as well as Portner, paving that section of road all the way from Moss to, up to our northern boundary. Let's see. You address the concerns about changing the plan after approval. And then in terms of concerns about the wells, we do hear that. I think we heard that last time as well. We are required to design our subdivision in a manner that does not impact groundwater quality for the area in general. So we will comply with all standards required by the city of Nampa, as well as DEQ and any other agency that has purview over our designs. So with that, I think that I've covered all of the concerns. Again, I appreciate everyone's time this evening. And again, on behalf of the Wagers family, I'm here tonight to request your approval for annexation and preliminary plat of the Wagers Dairy subdivision.
Does anybody else have questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Great,
So
thank you.
I have one, just to make sure the width of Portner from Moss Lane to your northern boundary will be 56 feet?
Christy, can you put up we've actually got, in my presentation, there was a roadway section picture.
I saw it, but I couldn't read it.
Oh, yeah, let me flip to that.
That's what it says in the packet, is from the engineering department.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, 56 is the roadway section here.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the standard for the local street section per the city of Nampa's roadway requirements.
That's all I got.
Great, thank you very much.
Daniel, Steve has questions for you.
I didn't want you to tell me it was for me. Daniel, most of the complaints seem to hinge on Portner Road, and that's mainly in Caldwell,
It's within the highway district's area currently.
not so much ours.
Not currently until such time as it's annexed into the city.
And is it really, I mean, people sometimes have a tendency to make things fit what they want it to fit. Is the road really that narrow that you can't get two cars down there at the same time?
The road, the northern portion of that road as it hits Homedale is very skinny. There is more right-of-way than just the pavement section. But a number of the property owners along there have encroached on the public right-of-way. And so the highway district, should they choose, could go in and require them to move those and widen that section within their jurisdiction.
So how does that happen?
Yeah, how did the
How does-
county allow it to happen?
Oh, that's,
Longer discussion?
well, that's people do it and nobody complains and the highway district doesn't drive that road and
Well, I'm
but
looking
it
at
just happens.
one of the last roads on Portner. And, yeah, the driveways,
Right away.
the front of their house isn't 15 feet from the road. I don't know if you could park a car there. But that's my thing, is how to, because they had to get a building permit for that. I'm sure they did.
You know, these are,
It's not Daniel's fault, for the record.
No, and I'm just.
a number of these homes are older and likely before current codes, as well as being in the county, which has different codes than the cities do. And so that's all I can really speak to that. There is right-of-way, though, that should the highway district choose to, could widen that out to be a two-lane road.
Does the city of Nampa, do they ever contact them and say, hey, you guys are causing us a problem on our end of the city? Can you?
There are many issues that are active between the highway district and the city that we discuss. I have talked about this one with the district engineer. When I spoke to him, as the applicant stated, they have not, this is not an area where they've received complaints from the residents. And so it's not something that.
The same residents that we have here?
I would assume so. And so that was their statement to me when I spoke to them about this, that this is not something that they received complaints on and were aware of any issues for their district residents.
So, Daniel, we often say that, yeah, traffic's a problem, but we need the impact fees in order to improve the roads and fix the traffic problems. I'm becoming less confident that would happen here. If nobody's
Something of
interested in
this
fixing it.
nature would likely not be something that impact fees would be able to be used for. This would likely be something that the jurisdiction that would need to utilize just their general funding for.
Any other questions for Daniel?
How optimistic do you feel about that happening?
You know, that's something that would be up to the Nampa Highway District and what they would choose to do. And as the applicant said, the more complaints they receive, the more likely to have something done.
Thanks.
Daniel, there was some comment about failing wells in the Treasure Valley. I know we've brought this up in the past. Do you know of any? What's happening? Is there?
The aquifer, obviously the city, the proposed development would be taking water from the city's domestic system. The closest domestic well that we have that would be feeding this area is over behind Karcher Mall. The groundwater in this area is the basin that we're in this area has plenty of water, and we are not seeing a decline in the groundwater level within that basin. There are some concerns that have been raised and publicized out south of town. Generally speaking, that aquifer is the same, that we're not seeing a decline in that aquifer, and the studies that we have reviewed that Idaho Department of Water Resources has completed, as well as other jurisdictions, does not show a concern with the lowering of groundwater. Typically what we see is that the wells that are going bad are due to construction issues, not a groundwater issue within the area that we are talking about for the city's impact. There are other areas, obviously, within the valley that have different conditions, but that's what we see around here.
Okay, thank you.
Are we done with Daniel now?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
I liked it the last time. I still like it. I think the lots that back up to the county subdivision are bigger. They take in the fact that you're butting up to larger lots. To ask you to go and pay and buy a bunch of property that the city has no jurisdiction over the road on anyway doesn't make any sense to me. I think what you guys are going to do with the roads that you're going to access, you're going to spend a ton of money just making those roads much better, getting in and out. To go beyond your property, that's asking way too much. And I commend you for stepping up and doing what you're doing with the Valley View School District. That's more than you need to do. It's not your fault that the voters don't pass the levies, and there's nothing we can do about that. But to tell you what you can and can't do with property this family's owned for almost 100 years, I can't do that. I'm sorry, but I'm in favor of it.
I like the project too, and I think a couple of the things that I'm impressed with is this idea that because they're not going to do the entire Portner Road, then they shouldn't be able to do any of the Portner Road. I mean, if they're going to do half of that road and improve it and make it 56 feet wide, at least they're getting you most of the way there. And then, you know, with more complaints to the highway district, they'll probably come in and help out with the remainder of that. But at least this development does do a lot of what needs to be done to make that road wider. The other thing that I think of is if we're worried about Portner Road and its, you know, ability to be traveled, the more houses you have on that road, the slower traffic is going to go and the safer the road becomes. That's the nature of it. Now, you can laugh, but it's true. If you drive down a road that has closer homes to it and more cars on the road is safer because it's narrow, people naturally go slower. And so having those homes added onto that road and facing that road, I like that idea because of what it will do to create a safer environment for that road. So there's several things that I like about it, and the fact that they've come back and responded to public comment. Now, before, and you saw the graphic that was on the screen, all the traffic that they were dumping onto Portner, they've now gone back and redone their plans in response to what the community has said and said, okay, they don't want all that traffic on Portner, got it. We're going to take some out onto Moss. We're going to take some out onto Meeker, and we'll take a little bit out onto Portner. Plus, we're going to add these others onto Portner to continue to help them feel like they've got a neighborhood there. So some of the concessions that they've made, I really appreciate them.
I think it fits right in with.
We need the gallery to be quiet during this. This is our chance to discuss it, and public hearing is over. So please don't be shouting out. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think it fits right in with the comprehensive plan, meets the code. It's unfortunate that Canyon County can't get their act together and get their road fixed.
But with more
believe
complaints?
that it's, I mean, I can believe it because I've seen it, but it's just like, hello. Anyway, you know, I totally agree with Tom. They've owned this property for 100 and some year, or 100 years almost, and it's time to get this thing developed, and I support the project 100%.
I tend to agree that I liked it the last time it was here, and I like it better this time because the applicant has changed the configuration of where the roads were going to be dumping into each other. And I, as some of you said, I appreciate them doing that. I do not like the road is still not sufficient for the traffic that's going to go onto it, but the residents are going to the wrong party. Instead of coming to the city, they should be going to the county highway district and saying, hey, listen, we've been here for 50 years, 60 years, you haven't touched the road. It's our turn to get a few bucks and get this road wide enough to put some cars down there without people laughing because I agree with you. You look in the subdivision, traffic is always much slower than it is outside of a subdivision because the homes are more dense. And people have respect people's property. If you're not respecting your property, it's your own fault because you're the ones that live out there. You're not driving slow to respect your own neighbors. So slow down if it's too fast. Don't be blaming other people for it. You're the ones that live there. Don't laugh at somebody that has the idea that's correct. the more homes, the denser it is, the tendency is to drive slower. That's not the reason to build this, but what he said is true. What you need to do is go to the highway district and say, we need the improvements we've been paying for 50 years and never got. The school district went over backwards to try and help you out. You guys are just addressing the problem the wrong way.
I wasn't around for the first round, so maybe I'll bring a fresh perspective here. Are we worried about compatibility with the city or with the county stuff that's around them too? Because sure, it's compatible with the city stuff that's across the street, but I don't know if these lot sizes are compatible with the current county lots that are around it. And I know the ones that are sure right next to it are a little bit larger, but they're still right at or under a quarter acre. So
I think that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan, though.
Yeah, and that's what you have to look at.
Comprehensive plan
Well,
designates it as
we
meeting.
also have to decide if it's compatible.
Yeah.
But as the city of Nampa Planning and Zoning, do we care if it's compatible with the county? Because I don't think it is, but it's compatible with the city that's barely contiguous, you know, well, not barely contiguous, it's contiguous off the south side, but I think you're right, Matt, about the traffic calming nature of having homes on the road. But I think these lots are a little bit different nature than the lots that, like, they keep saying that there's already residential lots on Port Nurillo. Maybe you can correct me, Christie, but they're bigger than 80 feet, I'm sure. 80 foot's like a subdivision, you know, lot width. You usually don't back out of that onto a hopefully soon to be improved public road, or this part will be improved, you know. I'm concerned about Portner, but I agree with you guys that it's not the applicant's responsibility to fix that problem. I'm a little concerned about the compatibility, and it doesn't seem to fit in the neighborhood it is in. But I don't know if that's grounds for denial. Those are my thoughts to no significant conclusion.
Well, we got to think about compatibility with the subdivision that Cottle already approved too.
How big are
Once
those
that
lots, do we know?
subdivision is going to go in, it's the same. It matches what this is. So.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you, I mean, you know, to a point, I agree, but if you strictly went by county subdivisions, there wouldn't be any subdivisions further than what the city limits currently are.
Okay.
I think by those ones that they've got backed up to that sub, by widening them and making them a lot bigger, they're a lot more compatible. And once you get away from that, then you can get down into the zoning that they're going for, which fits the comprehensive plan, which.
You're still packing small lots onto this road that's already not great, but again, that's not.
Well, maybe if
That's
they
not
get
their
enough
fault.
complaints by the time they actually develop the road, the county will come in and say, hey, you're already more than halfway done with this thing. Let's just go ahead and finish it out.
Maybe, but there's no guarantee. of
No,
it.
there's not.
No.
But
And I do like the fact that they've brought in the common spaces and positioned them for buffering between existing and the new, right?
I don't think it was fair for council to kick it back and I guess it worked out for the best in the end, I think. But we got a donation to the school and different access points into the subdivision, so.
Yeah, it looks better than what it did the first time around.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to move and recommend approval of annexation and zoning to RS7 single-family residential and subdivision preliminary plat for Wagers Dairy subdivision, including 68 single-family detached units and 9 common lots at 0 Wilma Lane, 16645 Portner Road, and 11568 Moss Lane for NV5 Bonnie Layton representing Lee Wilson, with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval to city council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that goes on to city council. Again, yeah.
Thank you all for coming and giving your input.
I guess I know who's next.
Sorry, I saw the slides go up, so I just was up out of my chair here, so.
Freezing.
I'm freezing.
Nice in here.
I'm not lying. Okay, public hearing number 4.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. My name is Clark Thompson. I'm from Alsip and Persons Funeral Chapel, address 404 10th Avenue South, Nampa 83651. My role there is managing partner, and our proposal is to, our hope is to install a crematory into the funeral home located at that address. A little bit about us. Alsip and Persons has been a part of the community since 1907. We've been at the current address since 1911, and the last real big expansion that we had was about 2002. We had a chapel that was added to the facility, so that way we could further accommodate the needs of the community as it grows, and have a facility that certainly encompasses everything that people are looking for. We are a full-service funeral home, cremation provider with a facility that serves and provides services to all walks of life. We consider ourselves essential to the community and what it is that we provide. Our staff consists of people that live here in Nampa. We're a part of the community. We utilize the resources that are here, and we're actively involved in that community. With the request that we have for installing of a cremation facility, currently our mix of families, cremation versus burial, we currently serve about 61% of our clients choose cremation. The national average is 57.5%. It's expected that average will raise to 64% by 2025. With that, we obviously are anticipating that we also will see an increase in our mix that we have as we continue on. As we've talked about throughout the evening, the growth of the community creates a situation where we feel that we need to also grow with it, and so that's part of why we're here. Another part of the conversation is a lot of times when we meet with families, we talk with them, they already assume that we have that crematory facility on location. We do not, and we feel that it does provide a level of comfort to those families, knowing that there's that seamless service that we can hopefully provide to them. So the cremation process, I brought this slide in just to, in the event nobody knows what cremation is. Most people do. It is a matter of, our process is to identify the decedent and obtain the necessary authorizations from the next of kin, from medical doctors or the coroners throughout the community. Once we have obtained those items, we can then essentially proceed with our services. We check the decedent to make sure that there's nothing that's of concern, for instance, pacemakers. Those are actually removed prior to us proceeding, for the safety of everybody involved. Once that's completed, we then can move forward with the cremation process. Typically, temperatures that we're working with are between 1,400 and 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The cremation process itself takes about 2 hours on average. And then once that's completed, then we use a magnet to remove any type of metal that's potentially a part of that cremation process. And we prepare the cremated remains so that they can be delivered to the family. So provide a little bit of that background.
Question?
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but where's that done right now?
Currently, we utilize a service that is through a sister company, Sister Funeral Home in Boise, Cloverdale.
So you have to transport the decedent to
Correct.
Boise and
Correct, yep. Yep. So, and they utilize, I mean, they, at this point, they are providing that similar service to other funeral homes also in the area. With everybody having the increase that we've gone through, our hope is to have something that can relieve a little bit of the backlog that's occurred. Any other? So the facility itself, the cremator, so as far as terminology, there's different terms. There's a retort, there's a cremator, there is a cremation chamber. I will try to use one term, but, you know, just to kind of be consistent. But this here is an illustration, cross-section of what that facility would look like, that cremator. Essentially, on the upper part is the primary chamber, and then underneath it, you have a secondary chamber, which I'll discuss a little bit of the mechanics here. The picture on the right shows an opening kind of in the back upper right corner. And essentially what that is an opening that allows the gases from the cremation process to travel through from point A to point B, or Z, I guess in this instance. Cremation itself is just that. It's a conversion of a solid to a gas. And as we talked about before, the temperature ranges that we're typically working with are listed there, 1,400 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. In that primary chamber, the one that's listed up top, this is the area where, again, the decedent is placed, and this is where that initial burn takes place. It's for, again, listing here, the tissues, the organs, body fat, casket, any other container materials burned off into that gas form. The bone fragments that are part of that cremation process, they remain in that primary chamber. And again, that's what portion is essentially given back to the families once the process is complete. In the second chamber, in the secondary chamber, there's that combustion that continues on. And so throughout the entire process, you've got that combustion taking place. And if you recall that image that I had with that opening, where those gases move forward, they actually, the pointer won't show on here, but essentially the gases move through that chamber, through that opening. They drop down into the bottom part of the chamber, and then it essentially moves the length of the unit towards the front, and then it goes back to the rear of the unit, and then up through that stack. And throughout that entire time, that combustion process is taking place. And so by the time that essentially those gases are being removed from the equipment, they're moving out as carbon dioxide, water, and oxygen. And then as stated, it moves through that stack. As far as those emissions go that are released, this graph just kind of shows a little bit of a breakdown. We've got 4 different things that we're comparing. First one is in the dark blue is the residential fireplace. Second, in the purple or magenta, is the diesel truck. Yellow represents a restaurant cooking 100 hamburgers per hour, and then the B&L cremator. So the B&L cremator, the B&L is a company, and that's actually the unit that we're hoping to bring into our facility. And so as far as particulate matter goes, you can see the B&L cremator produces a very small amount compared to the other 3 things that it's being compared to. Nitrogen oxide, as those are being emitted, a little bit more, but yet, you know, again, it's nothing in comparison to the diesel trucks that are around us throughout the day. And then the volatile organic compounds, so again, your hamburgers, your hamburger restaurant, you can see the amount of emissions that come from a restaurant compared to the B&L cremator, which is minuscule compared to that. This next graph is pretty similar. Really, the only difference with it is it's just, it's shifted those same categories so that the fireplace is all listed in the one column, the diesel trucks in the second, the third is the restaurant, and then the fourth is that B&L cremator. Just so you can kind of see as far as the, you know, again, those emissions as far as what's being released from it. With mercury is obviously a concern that a lot of people have. as far as what's being released. This slide here, this slide goes over the amount of mercury that's released in the United States per year. So we have 320,000 pounds. Of that, there's almost 135,000 pounds of mercury that's released from coal-fired power plants. Fluorescent bulbs, 8,000 pounds. So anytime that those bulbs are broken at home as we're discarding them, that's adding to that, contributing to that. Mercury released from a diesel-powered truck, almost 68,000 pounds. For North America, so you got United States and Canada there's a total of about 320 pounds per year that's released. Of that, the United States EPA has tested that 0.00329 pounds of that mercury is released per body. That's an average because not everybody has mercury within them, obviously. That mercury that is with people is commonly coming from dental amalgam, so fillings. That's where that's originating from. And then with the amount that's tested through a B&L crematory system, as far as the emissions, 0.000601 pounds per hour. So it's a very
Just a second. On the other one, it's pounds per year, and here you're using pounds per hour. It's not apples
Correct.
to apples. What's apples to apples? So if it's so many pounds per hour, how many hours does it burn? How many hours does it burn a year? So what's the number per year rather than per hour? There you go.
Oh, well, 5.256
That's pounds.
pounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Christie.
That's, well, that's.
Getting to read my mind now.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that, but there we got it. So thank you. Anything else? Any other questions?
I had more questions, but I'll wait till you're in. I just
Oh,
didn't want
okay.
to get past that one and forget about it.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. Particulate emissions and mercury. So again, as we've talked about, there's obviously the biggest culprits in regards to particulate emissions and mercury is cars, trucks, restaurants, fireplaces. Crematories are not specifically something that is regulated when it comes to the emissions that they have. However, there was a study that was conducted in 2007 from the EPA where there was a limit that was created by the EPA in 2007 of 0.0061 pounds per hour. With the average cremation, it's been tested to be, again, 6.01 times 10 to the negative fourth. So what we're talking about, 601 thousandths pounds per hour, 10 times less than what the EPA limit is. Very similar with the particulate matter, that limit is 0.029 pounds per hour. The amount that's released through cremation is 0.00576 pounds per hour, again, 5 times less than what the limit is from the EPA. And so the amount that, while there is that emission that is taking place, it's very small, it's very minute. One can argue that there's more that's being released from throwing batteries away improperly or fluorescent light bulbs. And so it's our hope that we may be able to move forward with this, that we may be able to continue to provide a service, an essential service to the community as it continues to grow, and we would just want to be there to be able to help with it, so.
How many crematoriums are there in Nampa now?
There's one that I'm aware of.
Is it close to your facility by any chance? You don't have to tell me where it is, but is it within a block or 10 blocks?
It's on I would say it's probably about 3 miles north of us. Mhm.
And did you say they burned the caskets?
That's correct, yeah.
Why
So.
do they do that?
So there has to be, so the crematories have a requirement that a decedent needs to be placed within some type of a cremation container. The purpose of that is for respect for the decedent. It's also protection for our staff as we're handling the deceased, that they're essentially contained in a way. It helps with lifting as well, so that way, to avoid any on-the-job
You
injury.
mentioned earlier that if there's a pacemaker, you remove the pacemaker, so what's the difference?
So pacemakers, I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but
No, that's okay.
those have batteries in them, and when batteries go into fire, they explode. And so that's why those are removed. The cremation container itself that's used is to protect us, so we actually have handles that we can place the decedent in to that retort.
No offense, but couldn't you use just a plain pine box with handles? I mean, why did it have to be a?
Oh, yeah, we can use that, but I guess kind of we have to have something that a deceased is
Okay, but I'm thinking of
on.
a casket, you just spent $2,000 to put somebody in a casket and have a viewing in the funeral home, and then you're saying that casket goes into the crematorium and becomes ashes.
So a lot of that actually is combusted, and so it does not become ash. The only ash that's present is from that bone material.
I guess my point is, if I just spent $2,000 on a casket, I don't want to burn it up.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised what people will do.
We'll pitch in for the pine.
Fine by me.
And there's obviously options. I mean, we've got different options for people, so they don't have to purchase a $2,000 casket. There's, for instance, cardboard containers that can be used. And
I don't know why I thought that, but it seems to me I'd heard that they use cardboard containers.
That's correct, yep. Those actually have more byproduct that hangs around versus a wood product, just because they're man-made, they're synthetic, versus wood that's, organic. But yeah, there are those options.
So do you guys remove like the batteries, or do you have medical people do it?
So we're trained, and that's part of our licensing, so that we can remove those. But that's the only thing that we remove.
Do you x-ray the bodies to see if they've got anything, or you just go off
No,
medical records?
we go off of direction from the family, and then we actually physically check to ensure prior to proceeding. Just because it can be pretty expensive and, damaging to the decedent, we want to make sure
Maybe a
that.
scar or something, you can see from that they probably would have a pacemaker from the scar.
Correct, yeah. And then, of course, throughout all of this too, we do get written authorization from the family for us to actually proceed to remove.
And one of the questions I had that I didn't get a chance to answer, thanks, Tom. Does the unit have filters that filter the air as it's going up, so there's no solids, there's no ash, there's no whatever? I mean, does it just go out like a chimney, or is there filters as it's going up the chimney?
So there is an opacity meter that's attached to it, and essentially it measures as far as the clarity of that smoke that's going through. Essentially, again, just because of the temperatures that we're utilizing, everything is essentially, everything that can be.
Everything is toast.
Correct, yep, yeah.
One more question for you real quick. I just saw that, but, so is there any regulations, like when we have an inversion, where you are not allowed to use this because it would keep the air down closer?
There's not, to my knowledge. The crematories that are in the area, they essentially, they essentially operate based on.
Tom, would you quit interrupting me?
Sorry.
If you have this unit, will you take bodies from other funeral homes and do cremations, or will you just do your own clients?
So we actually, yes, we will be providing that service to other funeral homes as well. So again, it actually is going to assist other locations where, they don't have to be on the road as much, impacting the traffic. And yeah, it'll be closer for a number of places.
Thank you. I'm done, Tom.
I think we'll hear from staff, and we may have questions for it after public testimony. Okay, Christie.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Again, Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is for a conditional use permit for the crematorium at Allsup's and Persons Funeral Home, Funeral Chapel, and cremations at 404 10th Avenue South. Just to clarify, the 5.25 pounds per year of mercury that's released was a quick calculation, and that would be based on if this was running 24 hours a day.
Oh, really?
So I doubt it's going to be running 24 hours a day. So I just wanted to clear that up. It's not even going to be that much, so. So some general information about the property. It is Zone BC, Community Business. To the north is DV, which is a church. To the south is RMH, which is single and multifamily residential. To the east is RMH, which is single and multifamily residential, and to the west is RMH, which is single and multifamily residential units. Staff applied the 3 criteria for a CUP to this project, and our recommendation shows that this request is an addition to an existing use and will be fully enclosed within the existing building. This use will not impact the surrounding neighborhood. The accessory use will provide a service by a local business, and the stack will be required to be screened according to Chapter 34 Design Review Standards for the BC zoning district. And there will be no change to the current operations of the surrounding area, but it will provide an essential service to the community. So those are the 3 criteria that you will need to use when you make your decision this evening. So we did receive some input. One was from a gentleman that owns some duplex rentals nearby and is concerned about the air quality for his tenants. You also received a printed comment that is before you tonight that we received about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And then the building department had their standard Title IV requirements. So as far as surrounding land uses goes, there's a mixture of uses happening in the area. There's religious facilities, there's service businesses, and then there is residential. The parking for this business will not be affected by the internal remodel. You saw this graphic already. The one piece of public input that we got, they did submit a document that is in your staff report called the Field Inquiry. It's a Canadian study by the National Collaborating Center for Environmental Health. One of the things that they were talking about, or what that he questioned, was setbacks. So in this, on page 6, it says ground level concentrations can also be affected by local prevailing wind direction and topography. In North America, there are no standard requirements for crematoria setback distances and no minimum separation distances that are set at a federal level, either in US or in Canada. Municipal authorities can determine whether minimum setbacks are required based on relevant planning and environmental considerations. Just so you guys know, the area in the building where this is going to be located to the southeast is 50 feet away from the nearest structure. To the southwest is 154 feet from the nearest structure. To the northwest, it's 196 feet from the nearest structure, and to the northeast, it's 103 feet. On page 2 of that document, it states crematoria are usually considered small-scale installations with relatively low total emissions compared to other types of incineration facilities, such as municipal waste incinerators and other industrial processes. Page 7 shows an example of setback distances used in other countries. The only one that they quoted from the United States is in Sacramento County, and they chose to establish a 500-foot setback for agricultural and residential properties. They couldn't find setbacks in any other city, so just the one that chose to do it. The applicant has provided in his packet all of the things that he has presented to you this evening, including a 2010 letter from the Environmental Protection Agency regarding the mercury emissions. So the conditions of approval are listed in your staff report, and one is that the stack follow design review standards, and then some pretty standard codes as far as following building codes and those kinds of things. And these are your potential motions. I will stand for any questions.
Christie, underneath the potential motions on my page 144, it says conditional use permit conclusions of law, and it talks about apartments. Multifamily apartments within the proposed development will be compatible with and will not adversely affect.
That's a typo, sorry.
Okay, also, all 3 of those paragraphs were,
Yep, I'll fix that.
I was
It's a
going
typo.
crazy. I thought this was just a crematorium, not an apartment house.
Try to get clients somewhere.
And also,
Getting punchy, Tom.
under page 156, it's talking about Cremation Systems, Inc. I was reading this, and it was very factual, and I thought that's very interesting. And it talks about Dr. Steve Looker and how all the testing he's done for this, And then at the end, you find out the whole thing was written by Dr. Steve Looker, so it was like, wait a minute now, he's commenting about his own, yeah, that turned me off, to be honest with you. But I hope what he's saying is true, even though it's him that's saying it rather than somebody else. I mean, I'd have more confidence if it was Dr. Smith instead of Dr. Looker. That's his name now, I'm not making that up. So you guys find somebody else besides somebody that's patting themselves on the back, is the way I guess you would look at it. But other than that, I think it's a great project. I'm done. Tom, your turn.
Any other questions for Christie at this time? Okay, we'll go to public testimony. Okay, we have Ken Manship.
My name is Ken Manship. I live at 803 4th Street South in Nampa, 83651. I'm approximately 2 blocks from the Allsip facility. Madam Chair, Commissioners, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak. With that, I am against having a crematory added to the Allsip Funeral Home, and I am here tonight to encourage you all to vote no for this. With the addition of a crematory in our neighborhood, we can expect an increase in the release of chemicals from crematory smokestacks, especially mercury. Mercury is a toxin that can harm the nervous, digestive, and immune systems and can even be fatal. In 2017, cremations were responsible for 5.5% of the nation's mercury emissions, according to the EPA. Additionally, crematories also emit particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, volatile organic compounds, and carbon monoxide. In some parts of the country, in order to handle the coronavirus's death toll, laws are being changed to accommodate around-the-clock cremations. In fact, we heard from Allsip that they do intend to do cremations for other facilities. Can we expect around-the-clock cremations from Allsip? Now, Chrissy has said that she doesn't expect it to run 24 hours a day, but if it takes 2 hours, we're only talking about 12 bodies. So 12 bodies would, in fact, have the crematory running 24 hours a day. And if, local load, outsourcing, I don't think it's unrealistic to assume that this will run quite often. Can you imagine enjoying your dinner at Brick 29? One of Nampa's premier fine dining establishments. It's a block away, and you're looking out at that wonderful view of a smokestack emitting visual particulate matter. As a result of around-the-clock cremations, it is not clear how much emissions have increased because the number of cremations themselves hasn't been established. I mean, they admitted it's not regulated. One reason data is hard to come by is that the nation's 3,000 to 4,000 crematories are regulated by the states, and the state and local health departments are overwhelmed and behind in keeping up to date. Are we certain that our overwhelmed agencies can do the work necessary to ensure that the air quality is safe for our children and for our community? The industry will tell you that emissions are too low to raise serious environmental concerns. I will concede that crematories are low emitters in the grand scheme of things, but we are talking about a crematory in a neighborhood where emissions will increase. That is a fact. I would also like to add, Mr. Kehoe brought up a very, very, very elegant point about the doctor. I would also like to note that almost every single slide that was brought to our attention was done by the crematory, by the people that are creating the crematory. All of the slides, all of that data was very biased data. I must stop, is that what you're telling me?
If you can wrap it up, we'll give you like 10 more seconds.
I probably need maybe 60, but if I'm done, I'm done. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the time to say what I could say.
Where do you live again?
803 4th Street South.
4th Street South.
4th Street South.
Okay, how close are you to 12th Avenue?
12th, well, I'm on 8th Avenue, so 4 blocks.
The diesel trucks running up and down 12th Avenue don't bother you or bother you?
Absolutely, they bother me.
Okay, Okay, so.
Can we talk about, I mean, is the floor open to that discussion? Love to have that discussion.
Just, I'm concerned about what your concern is. You know, you're concerned about the crematorium, which has minuscule emissions of whatever.
According to the data put out by the crematory.
I agree with you. I don't like the data either. I mentioned that. But I don't know, if I was as concerned as you are, I would be more concerned about the diesel trucks than I would be about a crematorium.
And I am absolutely concerned about diesel trucks, but that is not, this is not the venue for that discussion. And at the end of the day, by adding a crematory, we're only adding to diesel truck emissions. We're only adding to 100 burgers an hour. We are decreasing the quality of air in my neighborhood. I'm not okay with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jack, and Jen Douglas.
Hi, I'm Jack Douglas. I live at 507 10th Avenue South. I live less than football throw from the crematorium itself. I'm not in favor of this motion at all. It just seems kind of, it doesn't seem like very kosher. I don't know, for the lack of a better term, but it's just, I have a son, I have a wife, I have 3 dogs. We try to keep a clean life. There's kids all around, right across the street. And the buildings, if you pull it up, it's gonna be in the alleyway, right? The other side of the alley, so we're talking a car's length, is apartments. That's where they walk into their houses, I'm pretty sure. On the other side is another multifamily apartment complex or what have you. And then you have 2 churches on top of that, Sunday mass or a Saturday, what have you.
Excuse me.
He was very thorough. I like this a lot, honestly. And then there's also more apartments on top of that on the corner of, right, shares their parking lot. So it's like, I don't know if you picture this, put yourself in our shoes, Do you want to live next to a crematorium? Do you want to see smoke from burning bodies? You're gonna see steam, you're gonna see smoke, it's gonna put that picture in your head. Do you want to see that? The next crematorium is on 11th Street in an industrial zone. Look it up right now, it's 3 miles away. But it's in an industrial zone next to railroads, tracks and everything, right next to the interstate. Not next to Breck 29, where my roommate works. His owner couldn't be here, he's out of town. He would be if he was. So, that's a multi-million-dollar restaurant. That entire building, you have a bar there as well. You have all kinds of businesses. You're right next to the library with kids going in and out. There's an arcade, there's an ice cream shop right next to that. 55-plus gym right next to that. Just doesn't seem like the right spot is all. An industrial zone seems, that first agenda item seemed great. It was an industrial zoned area. But anyways, thanks for listening. I hope something gets passed or doesn't pass. This seems like it's not going to, but thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present that would like to testify?
I think if he wants to come up and address the concerns, maybe.
Clark, do you want to come back up and?
Okay, so in regards to the concerns that were brought up, with the conditional use permit, one of the items that was listed on there was to have a screen that would block that potential view of any of the emissions that would be coming out. By and large, with cremation, there really is no smoke that's coming out of it. Again, it's a heat wave that's coming out of it. Much like if you look across the the desert, looking over or the horizon, and you see, on a hot day, you can see that heat wave that's coming off. That's essentially what's coming up, is what's visible from it. And so, and of course, with the screen there, that would also, help, disguise that, I guess, for lack of a better word, and make that so that that's not something that's going to be present. With the emissions, the concern, I hear it. I'm a parent as well, and obviously that's something that's a concern that I would have also, do have, as far as but I also know that the equipment that we're looking at utilizing is something that is state-of-the-art, that does address those emissions, and has been designed and engineered to minimize any amount of that's coming off, which is already a minuscule amount.
Maybe you said this earlier and I just missed it. Is there any noise? How loud is it? Would we notice it?
There is noise that comes off of them. Being inside the building, if a person's on the outside of the building, not in that, you're going to hear very little noise, honestly.
Okay, I think that's it.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair, just looking at the requirements that govern our decision on a conditional use permit, I've got just a problem with one of them. And it has to do with compatibility of the surrounding area. Cremation process is definitely a needed service, given I think the facility is on Fairview in Boise, and it seems like a busy place. It's in a BC zone. I know it's a conditional use, but I don't know, right in the core of downtown, it's the best location. Kind of torn on this one. Presentation, I was thinking otherwise, but after listening to the testimony and thinking about where this is in the city, causes me a little bit of concern, and so I'm going back and forth here, and he's right. I feel like an industrial location would be better, but it's hard to do that when your property is where it is. So anyway, I'm rambling. Those are my thoughts. Criteria speaks to negatively impacting neighboring properties, and if I lived right next door, I don't know how this would be a positive.
Ron, would your major concern be the mercury, or is there other stuff?
Just emissions in general. I mean, I know it's minuscule, but it's in addition to emissions that are already there, and I'm not I went to University of Oregon, but I think differently than a lot of the people that went there. But again, I mean, it's a BC zone right in the core of downtown, next to services and library.
Houses.
It's been there 100 years.
I agree,
What
but they haven't been
crematorium
burning
doesn't?
people for 100 years. Cremating people, sorry. That was
That's my concern too, is the neighbors having to look at it.
They won't see it.
heat wave.
You'll still see
Don't see
something.
the heat wave either, because this gonna build, we've done this many times in the past, where they've had air conditioning units and other units built on top of buildings, and we make them put something around them so you can't see the air conditioning. This is the same thing. It's a heat wave. You can't see the heat wave 5 feet above it. So, and I don't know, Tim, I agree with everybody or whoever that it's not the best location in the world, but it's not detrimental to your health that, I mean, if it was that bad, EPA and everybody else would be saying, no, 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 don't do this anymore, or do it out in the middle of the desert or someplace. There's no guidance saying that don't do it here or there.
I think, for me, I think a part of the struggle with it is like separating the morbidity of what's happening, right? If it was a brewery that was doing that and having the off-gassing, I don't think we'd have nearly the pushback that we have with this,
You wouldn't.
right? I mean, so I think separating the morbidity of burning dead bodies is a large part of the hangup, you know, the particulate that's coming out. So there's, right downtown city of Caldwell, there's a cremation plant right down in the city of Caldwell. You know, a couple of blocks from houses, right? You know, there's houses right across the street. So I think it's the newness of it and the morbidity of it that causes us a little bit of the hangup. At least that's my reading of it.
I mean, we're not talking about just,
Mhm.
it's a different type of emission, right? And right in the core of downtown, I mean, it's minuscule, but it's adding to what we already have, and it's right downtown. And if Caldwell has one, great, but the conclusions of law, the CUP, I've got to hang up with considering it in our downtown and next to services and people and businesses. But I'm just one person. And I've made a few motions tonight, 2 motions tonight.
So you're boycotting any more motions, okay.
I mean, I can make a motion, but I'm leaning toward a denial, and if it doesn't pass, you guys can make the motion to approve, so.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve because I really don't think I think it's psychological. It's not physical. It's in your brain, and, you know, I agree with you that that's why I really didn't want to hear all his talking about removing the pacemaker and all that. When I was in retail, I used to have a security agent, a lady who was 70 years old at the time. She worked in a funeral home, and she would go in there at night and remove the pacemakers. That's what her job was. And I thought it was the grossest thing in the world. But this was a 70-year-old lady was doing this. And if I could live past that, I guess I could live past this. So,
Well, I mean, being detrimental can be psychological, though.
well, true, but it's not.
But is it any more less psychological than what's already there? It's already dead bodies there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm torn on this too, so I don't know. Because it is an industrial process, isn't it? At the end of the day.
There's a reason that there's a CUP attached to a
Right.
CG.
Well, the reason
And
it's
there's not a
CUP is
CUP.
because it's not a
BC
common
zone.
thing, right?
Well,
No, because it's in a BC zone. So if this was in an IL zone, would it be permitted? Yeah.
yeah, mortuary is permitted, but a crematorium is a CUP. I mean, it's listed. Right. And that's why.
Conclusions of law on the CUP. That's. Okay, I'll make another motion. Madam Chair, I move to deny the conditional use permit for a crematorium at Allsip and Parsons Funeral Chapel and Crematoriums at 404 10th Avenue South in the BC zoning district for Clark Thompson representing Carriage Funeral Holdings, Inc., because the project fails to comply with the first conclusion of law of our decision-making process for the CUP. It's not compatible with the surrounding land use.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to deny the CUP. All those in favor of denying?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Or 2 noes. Okay, so that is denied. So it goes, they can take it to city council if they want to appeal it, correct?
Yep.
I have to read this even though we didn't approve it? Okay. So this CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of.
You don't approve.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying, that's what I have. The applicant says,
At the end.
now at the end, it's talking about planning and zoning, there's no. Yeah.
It's a pretty small paragraph.
Appeal, if 15 days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the planning and zoning department with the appropriate fee. That's, I mean, that's the closest thing I can get.
says if approved.
Yeah, and this one. Not recommend, yeah. You have 15 days to appeal with, to go to city council. Thank you, guys. Okay, we have 1, 2 more that are kind of the same place. So we have the applicant here for Cherry Grove subdivision.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm Becky McKay with Engineering Solutions, business address 1029 North Rosario and Meridian. I'm here this evening representing KB Home Idaho LLC on a preliminary plat, planned unit development, and development agreement modification application for 271 single-family lots, 35 common lots on 74.35 acres in an existing RS 8.5 zone. So the subject property is located on the east side of North Franklin Boulevard. It's south of Chinden. Along the south boundary is Elm Lane, and then Prescott is on the eastern boundary. The property, to kind of give you a little bit of history, was annexed and zoned in 2007. And when it was annexed and zoned, then they did enter into a development agreement. They amended their development agreement in 2008, brought through a preliminary plat, which was approved as Granite Ridge subdivision in '08, and that preliminary plat has since expired. The property has currently just been in agricultural production. There are no structures on the site. We did hold a neighborhood meeting out at the site. We had 4 adjoining residents that were in attendance. We kind of talked about traffic, talked about lot size, open space. After we discussed the project, the overall attitude of the neighbors was that this was a superior plan than what was initially proposed in '08, and that they thought they could support this. In your comprehensive land use map, it's designated residential mixed use. That residential mixed use designation is primarily residential in nature. It talks about providing for vehicular pedestrian interconnectivity and a variety of housing types, designs, and encourages open space amenities and pathways. There is a proposed development just north of us that is, I think, taking shape. There's also an application to the east of us that has been submitted as Madison Ranch Estates. We did receive a copy of that plat. This property is just northeast of Ridgeview High School. and the high school is located on Linden Road. There is a future elementary site that is located next to the high school that has not been built on. The types of lots within this development, oh, before I go into that, that was Granite Ridge. As you can see, it was all single product, 8,500 square foot lots. They didn't provide any collectors, micropaths, any significant open space, very plain Jane grid type development. This is the preliminary plat that we've submitted this before you this evening. We have lots that range from 6,800 square feet to 12,670 square feet. Our overall gross density in this particular project is 3.64 dwelling units per acre. Our net density is 5.89. We do provide for a variety of single-family lot widths. We have 55-foot wide, 60, 75, 80, and 90. And then we have varying lot depths from 105, 110, 120, up to 130. This is to accommodate different house plans, different residential lifestyles. We did provide elevations of the homes with our application. One of the things that was in the original development agreement is you can see there is an out parcel right there in the southeast corner. The original development agreement indicated that all lots adjoining that would be 12,000 square foot or above. And we have maintained that part of the development agreement. That's the gray parcel, and they did appreciate the fact that we did make that effort. As far as services in this area, there is a trunk line that is in front of the LDS church. We're in the 15-mile sewer basin. We will have to extend a 21-inch sewer main east on Linden and then north on Franklin. It will be an 18-inch, and then I believe we'll also have to extend that 18-inch east on Elm. We're in Zone 2 for the water zone. There's a 12-inch water main that's in Linden. It's also in front of the LDS Seminary. We'll have to bring that to the site and then loop that. Your staff indicated in their report that Public Works, as each phase is submitted, will do an analysis to make sure in their water model that we are meeting fire flow requirements. Pressurized irrigation has been tapped out in this area. We will have to work with the engineering department and construct a regional pressure irrigation pump station. That will be located at Linden and sourcing from the Highline Canal feeder. Transportation-wise, we did do a traffic study. It was done by Kimley Horn. It was submitted to the staff. The staff reviewed it, had comments, additional information was provided, and the TIS was approved. North Franklin Boulevard is designated as a principal arterial, while Elm is currently designated a minor arterial, and then Prescott is a collector roadway. All dedications along Franklin and Elm were done with the 2007 annexation. The staff has asked us to dedicate 40 feet from center line for Prescott and for those improvements. As far as gravity irrigation, we're within the Pioneer Irrigation District. The 5.5 branch lateral kind of comes across our northeast corner, and then it goes westward, and then goes off the property about midway. This is the landscape plan. As you can see, we'll be providing 35 feet of landscaping with detached sidewalk along Franklin Boulevard. We have 25 feet of landscaping as a buffer along Elm and 25 feet next to Prescott. The project has a primary collector roadway, as you can see, comes in. That collector roadway has detached sidewalks. All of our local streets will have detached walks with a 6-foot landscape buffer and 4-foot sidewalks. We also have an entrance on Elm and an entrance on Prescott. We were asked by staff to stub 2 stub streets to the north for vehicular interconnectivity to the adjoining properties. I kind of clipped the corners, as you can see there at the collector and down at the Elm and Franklin intersection. That just kind of adds character so you don't get that linear look along your arterials, and it allows us to have an entrance feature, signage, etc. As far as the open space, you can see that in the project, we have 10.66 acres of total open space. So out of the 74.35 acres, we have 14.34% open space. Now, the way your new code has us calculate the qualified open space is they have us provide 15% of the residential acreage. So if in the 15% residential acreage, that 6.91 acres would be required of our project. We have 7.8 acres. So we're at 17.12% open space. In our central open space, I'll go to the next slide. We have a central common area that's just shy of 2 acres. There'll be playground equipment, picnic shelter, and then there'll be like a gazebo with benches and pathways. Then we have a pocket park that's going to have a splash pad with benches and pathways. Then we have another 0.34 acre pocket park that's going to be developed up in the north pod as a dog park. We also have some linear open space that provides open areas and pathways, and then multiple micropaths. And I wish this pointer worked. Is that what happened? So as you can see, between the pod in the northwest corner, we have a mew there. That's 20-foot wide landscaping. That's the dog park right there. And then to the south, that's the splash pad in that pocket park. And then our central open space, the 1.92 acres is there. And then you can see that we have a mew that connects the pathways so people can, and then we have micropaths that go north and to the east, and then in between the different pod areas. And then we have a north-south pathway that'll go up when we pipe the canal, so we'll have a pathway up there on that north boundary. So we're providing a lot of opportunities for people to walk and enjoy the amenities, and for kids to take a shortcut and go over to their friend's house without going around the horn. And that's the, obviously the intent of creating a good neighborhood. We were required to do the PUD application because we did have a variety of lot sizes, and on our proposed density, the maximum gross density within the RS 8.5 is 3.53 dwelling units per acre, and we are at 3.64. And then the maximum net density was 5.12, and we're at 5.89. So as you can see, we're just a smidge over, and with the PUD, that does allow us to boost that net and that gross density a little bit. We feel that we've compensated for, obviously, the allowance of a little bit of additional density by having the amenities, more open space, and more pathways. I'll switch over. These are the elevations of the homes. We submitted a significant number of elevations. These are obviously on the smaller lots, like the 50-foot wide lots. You can see they have varying roof lines. They all have little porches, 2-car garages. We have 2 stories. They do a lot, KB does quite a bit with creating a lot of modulation and interest in their front elevations. Here you can see another two-story. This gives you what we call a streetscape, so you can kind of see what their homes would look like. Obviously, a variation between single and two-story homes. They have quite a wide variety. They have stone, they have mixture of brick, different textures on the front. They have hip roofs, they have craftsman style, and then they have even modern style roof lines. So you can see that these homes, obviously with the variety within their package, we're not going to have mundane homes that, you know, all appear to look alike. And that's their intent, to create a neighborhood, not just another subdivision. Let me get to my last slide here. We did submit a modification development agreement with an Exhibit C, which did include the conditions of approval as specified by Public Works. And then we put our 6,800 square foot minimum lot size versus the 8,500 that was in the original DA. And then we did include some of the provisions on the types of homes as far as making sure that they met the quality that the city wanted. And we submitted covenants, and part of those covenants are architectural standards. We think we have a great project. One of the things that was brought to my attention was the condition that is taking place within the Valley View School District. The school district did write a letter. They said they did have concerns about the number of children that will be generated in this project. This project is a 7-phase project. We anticipate that it would be built over a period of time, obviously market conditions continuing, probably 5 to 6 years. So it's incremental that we would be adding traffic and incremental that we would be adding students. East Canyon Elementary, I was told by Joseph Palmer, who's here this evening from the Valley View School District, that they are changing their internal circulation pattern to try to alleviate some of the traffic problems that they've had. However, the East Canyon is over capacity. Summit View Middle School has capacity. Ridgeview High School, they anticipate that it will be over capacity within the next 5 years. According to Mr. Palmer, they do have a site. They have 3 elementary sites that they could build on, but obviously in August of this year, board willing, they would have to run a bond issue to build those schools. So one of the things that Mr. Palmer and I talked about is what can we do in the private sector to help the situation. His suggestion was that we participate and mitigate our impact on this school district, and that would be at a cost of $500 per lot. That would equate to $135,500. I did consult with my client, Thomas Coleman, representing KB Homes, and he indicated that that was acceptable if that would be applied at the time of issuance of a building permit. So that would be paid just like impact fees for parks, for fire, for police, and building permit fees. So Mr. Palmer did send another letter to the city that's part of the packet, indicating that he appreciates our support. And I think, more developers need to step forward, and we need to obviously work on getting school sites in our bigger projects that are donated, like elementary sites. I've done Mountain View High School site was part of a commercial project I did. I've done 2 middle schools in West Ada. I think I've had 4 or 5 elementaries in West Ada over my 32-year career, and I did a Boise elementary school site. So that public-private partnership, working with the development community to obviously express their needs and their long-range plans, and us being able to step forward and help is something that I've always supported. When my kids were in West Ada School District, it was overcrowded, and they were begging for bonds to be approved, just like it is today. I don't think anything's changed. But, you know, if we can get creative and try to help alleviate the problems, and, you know, we got to start somewhere. So that's kind of my thought. The project before me's the first, and I guess I'm the second. So hopefully we can kind of get the ball rolling. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I think
have
we've
a
got a
couple.
good quality project.
Want me to wait? Stay for- okay. The boss told me I should have to wait.
Wait till we're done with, yeah, put it on there. Okay, I need to take a 5-minute break.
That's why you're waiting, Steve. You're not going to that one, right? I'm not going to accept it.
What can they do to you? You're already dead.
Throw you out in the street.
Yeah. Ready?
Do you have anything to add to that presentation?
I'll go through as fast as I can. Are we good? Okay, so there's a couple different motions that we'll have to make. As you are probably aware, we had this scheduled previously and had to continue it because we decided that the development agreement had to be modified prior to the plat approval. So the development agreement modification will have to be the first motion, and then the plat and PUD would be the second motion.
Okay.
The surrounding area is all county. To the south is RS 8.5, and that would be I guess it's already annexed, so we don't have to worry about connectivity there. It was annexed and zoned in 2007 with the development agreement that we'll talk about. The development agreement was amended in 2008 to include utility improvement conditions. Regarding PUDs, so we don't get these often, so this might be a good refresher. The intent of the PUD is to permit greater flexibility for development, consequently to promote more creative design than would generally be possible under conventional zoning. It's further intended to promote a more economical and efficient use of land while facilitating a harmonious variety of neighborhood development, a higher level of urban amenities, and preservation of natural scenic qualities of open space. So there's a number of different things that you will need to make in your determination. So the first one, the proposed development is consistent in all respects to the spirit and intent of the PUD chapter, which we'll cover a little bit further. It's in general conformance to the comp plan and the surrounding area. The other things that you'll need to consider as far as the PUD regarding the project design, the landscaping, the streetscape, open spaces, use of landscaping essentially, the siting, the visual focus points, use of existing physical features, there aren't really any out there, the view, solar access orientation, all those different siting aspects, and then design features such as street sections, architectural styles. Regarding the procedure for a PUD, it's essentially reviewed with the plat. If there weren't a plat, they would have to apply for a PUD permit, but the permit is essentially the approval of the plat. So the PUD and the plat are good for an expanse of 18 months, in which time they would have to file a final plat within that. Any changes to that, to a certain degree, would require an approval by the commission as a business item. I think we're all aware of the development agreement regulations. It's essentially an agreement between the city that they would develop it in a certain way. If either party doesn't agree to it, then you can certainly deny it and just go back to the previous agreement. There aren't really any conclusions of law other than just the city doesn't want to change their agreement. So here's the concept plan, which was shown previously, and some of the conditions on that. One being it shall not exceed 3 dwelling units per acre. Another, the minimum lot size would be 8,500, and the minimum lot size adjacent to the rural residential lots would be 12,000. So here's those two plans side to side. The existing development agreement has 223 lots, 4.01 net density, 2.85 gross density. This development is 271, 5.89 net density, and 3.64 gross. Correspondence, typical building correspondence, the applicant covered the Valley View School District letter, the updated letter. Nampa Police recommending a commitment to fund 1.2 additional officers and 0.04 staff. The fire department, the development is 3.4 miles from Fire Station 3, response time of 8 minutes. The increase of personnel would be 0.813 firefighter positions. Compass had a comment about widening Franklin Boulevard from 2 to 5 lanes. That's a number 3 priority in their 2040 plan, which as well as the fiscal impact, they're showing as a break even in 1 year for the city and the county. The engineering comments, essentially covered by the applicant. There's a 50-foot right-of-way along, that was already dedicated in 2007. And then the 40 feet on Prescott would be what would be required. The traffic impact study didn't identify any projected, didn't require anything additional. Aside from the standard traffic impact fees that they would need to be paid, The utilities, if there's further questions about that, I'll let Daniel cover that. There's a new mid-mile collector road along the north boundary of this, which is what the stub streets were planned for on this subdivision. The area is mostly ag land. There's future developments that are to come forward in the near future. The future land use designation is residential mixed use. The NAMPA determines in the public interest to provide single-family opportunities. The safe routes to school, East Canyon is 3.5 miles, Summit View is 6.1, and Ridgeview High School is 1.2. As far as the PUD, a planned unit development is being sought here to allow the higher density than what would normally be allowed in an RS8 subdivision. In exchange for a higher density, developments provide more creative design or for development under bulk requirements, setbacks, building height, those such of things. The ultimate result should be a development that promotes more economic and efficient use of land while facilitating higher level amenities and natural scenic qualities. We've covered the development agreement. I won't go into that any further. The plat has essentially been covered, so I won't cover that again. The one thing to note is the max density for a PUD in this zoning would be 6.41, so we're within that. For a non-PUD subdivision in this zone, it would be 5.12. The open space development, this development would be required to provide 15%. As I said before, the one intent of the PUD is to facilitate a higher level of urban amenities, so it would be up to you to determine whether that intention has been met with this proposal. Open space is 7.88 acres, 17%, which includes a playground, dog park, splash pad, as well as walking pads. The conditions of approval are in the staff report. Nothing has changed from that. So we'll have two different motions here, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions? I get to ask my questions that were deferred. No, we can't close public hearing, no, I can't ask questions.
So before. Okay, public hearing, we have Becky signed up, and then Joseph, you're on here again. Do you want to speak, or, okay, come on up. Becky gets to talk at the end. She starts it and finishes it. Yeah.
Well, it's good to be up here again because that means it's good news. So I just wanted to share that. I'm sorry, Joseph Palmer, 5207, South Montana, Caldwell, Idaho, representing Valley View School District. Thanks for the reminder. So of all the developers that we worked with in the Valley View School District, as I shared earlier, they've all been smaller developers. So this is the first big development company and large-scale project relatively to the other developers that have partnered with us, that's reached out and actually agreed to a partnership similar to the other one. So I went in a little skeptical, thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to have another conversation with the big dogs, and they're going to talk sweetly, and then they're going to let me down gently. So that did not happen in this case whatsoever. She was very understanding, and as she shared in her 32 years of experience with working in other school districts, she follows through and she understands how to make these partnerships happen. It was very short amount of time, I think less than an hour, for her to reach out to, I think, what is it? The company, KB Homes, right? KB Homes, to affirm, yes, that they would like to be in a partnership like this. So for the Valley View School District, that gives us hope that the trajectory is changing as far as receiving feedback and working out a way to work together. And also at this scale, according to the GIS information that I received from West Ada, when they received a similar development of 275 units, that would generate 154 students for West Ada. So you can imagine that it would be similar for 271 units in the Valley View School District. Of course, meted it out over the years as the development is created. And I'm probably come close to my 3 minutes, so I'll stop right there.
Thank you.
Question.
Thank you for sticking around.
So with
My
the
pleasure.
donated funds, does that go toward like more facilities like portables and things like that, or how are those funds
Yep.
spent? And
So
I know
our-
they kind of flow in as building permits are issued, so. Does it just go general fund and then you guys figure out how to?
Yeah, so we'll create a specific line item budget within the general fund. And then our hope is to specifically use it to save up money to purchase land. We immediately need to purchase land for a third high school. Currently, we have $0 to purchase land. We were hoping to have that money in the March bond. That failed. And we do not have the luxury to just sit around and hope that the bond's going to pass in August or in the future if it fails again in August. So we're working to hustle on behalf of all of our patrons with the developers to see if we can pull that money together so that way we can get that land sooner than later and not always be at the mercy 100% of a bond passage. So portables, yes, that too, but we would like to steer clear from that.
Can you use like federal funds for land purchases?
No,
Expansion?
capital projects we're not allowed to do. So even,
That's just like emergency funds for
yeah, federal funds is only for, well, it depends on which federal fund we're talking about.
like the COVID package that went through. that everyone-
ESSER funds? Yeah, no, we wouldn't be able to use that for purchasing, yeah. We wouldn't be able to use that for purchasing land. We can't even purchase a shed, for example, for storage, things of that nature. So a lot of red tape there.
You can't even buy a shed to put the money in.
Well said. Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Cynthia Waitens. Not you. Well, she must have got tired of waiting, I guess. Are you here to testify? Okay,
Oh.
so you're just moral support, okay.
Thank you for what you did for the school system. I appreciate that.
You want to come back up, Becky, and Steve will ask you his question.
I'm sorry. We'll get you home real soon, I promise.
Madam Chair, I thought maybe I'd get off easy.
No, I got a memory like a elephant. What was I gonna say? All the renderings that you showed had two-car garages.
Yes.
Do those have a third bay in the back, or are they just all mostly two-car garages?
Some of
Have a
them are.
two-car garage, don't you?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Keough, some of them are doing tandem where it looks like a two-car garage,
Right,
but
but it's
it's
one
a tandem.
Right.
Now, I haven't seen the actual house plans. I'm not saying that those will have a tandem. They may have, you know, an option for a three-car garage, which could be a tandem, or on those bigger lots, the wider lots, we obviously, you could put a three-car garage. So we could end up with a variety out there due to the mixture of lot widths.
Inevitably, when you only have a two-car and they have three cars, one or two of them are gonna be out in the garage. I mean, out of the garage, into the front yard or onto the driveway, and they become eyesores. Second, You have some very nice amenities, and I congratulate you, especially like the splash pad. Don't ever see those. They're really great. The kids love those kind of things. But was there gonna be any kind of parking around those? People have to walk to those, or will they be able to drive and then get out and go to the splash pad and the other, or just?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kehoe, we typically like to promote people to get out and walk and bike. We usually don't do a parking lot unless we're doing a pool facility and a clubhouse, where you may have people that need to park for, a birthday party or handicap parking and so forth. But where we
that's good.
have
You answered the question.
active amenities, we want people and the kids to be as active as possible.
I agree with that, but unfortunately, my neighborhood, we have a pool. People live a block away and they drive to the pool.
I've heard.
Crazy.
It's crazy. I've heard the same complaint in other neighborhoods. So, the best we can do from planning perspective is incorporate lots of those pathways and micropaths and detached sidewalks. So it's inviting for people and they can take shortcuts and don't have to walk a significant distance to go from one amenity to the other. And I feel that this project meets the mark.
Yeah, I think so too. I appreciate your hard work. You did a great job in your presentation, I think.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Becky?
You probably said this, are they private or public streets internally?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Morgan, these are public streets, and they will all be 34 feet in width. No reduced widths.
We're done with you.
Thank you.
Easy peasy.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
I'll move to recommend approval of the development agreement modification for Cherry Grove subdivision and rescinding of a 2008 addendum aligning sewer requirements at the time on a property at 0 Elm Lane totaling 74.35 acres in an RS 8.5 zoning district for KB Home Idaho LLC representing Ruben J. and Sarah Asumati, with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the modification of the DA. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's one down. Now there's a second one.
Do something.
Do something. Oh, my God.
Earn your keep. Madam Chair, I move to recommend approval of the subdivision preliminary plat and plan unit development for Cherry Grove subdivision at 0 Elm Lane.
Turn around, right behind you.
Yes, okay, totaling 74.35 acres in the RS 8.5 zoning district for KB Homes Idaho LLC representing Ruben J. and Sarah Asumandi, with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the PUD and plat, preliminary plat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?